Welcome everyone to Comics from the Multiverse, episode 360. I am Peter, and joining me, as almost always, is Connor.
It's starting to feel that way.
You've been here a lot recently. Although, when was the last time it was just me and you, and Matt had a week off?
That was a while ago.
I want to say it was like Christmas time.
Yeah, but Matt doesn't take a lot of weeks off unless he's away on holiday usually, like now.
Yes, he's up doing a Canadian cruise or something. Although I think he was posting some nonsense about Boston.
I think he's in Boston today.
Yeah. So he's off doing stuff. He will be back week after next. So this is your duo for this week and next week. Apologies for your crushing disappointment that it's Connor instead of Matt.
I know. I will do my best to bring the misery.
But that's not what Matt does.
That's not what Matt does. That's sure that is. Yeah.
You're supposed to try and make up for what Matt usually brings, which is anger and zest.
Do you want me to go get a cap? I'll go grab one from the next room. Pretend to be Matt for a bit.
Yeah, get a cap. But yeah, so we're DC Comics Podcast. We get together, we talk about the week's DC Comics to be read, and unlike last week, which had basically no books, this week we actually have some things to talk about. So coming up on today's show, we have The Flash issue 800, we have Batman 136, we have Adventures of Superman John Kent issue 4, we have Shazam issue 2, and I've written this down. I actually didn't ask Connor, but did you read Poison Ivy issue 13?
I did not, no.
Oh, okay. I assumed
I
you
had
were reading
so
that.
much to read that I'm behind on that I prioritized.
That's fair enough. Okay, well, we'll check back in on Poison Ivy next issue. I'm sure Matt will be up to date. And then we have Shazam issue 2, which I might have said already. Steelworks issue 1, Dark Knights of Steel. I've not written down the number.
It's 11.
It's 11. Okay, good. That's good to know. And that's the show. That's what's coming up. But we also have a little bit of news, and we got all the usual antics to get through. So that is what is happening. So welcome to your Xbox 360 episode of Comics from the Multiverse.
Oh, throwback.
Yes. Actually, Talking Superman said something on Twitter today, and the actual content of the tweet, which was just about movies affecting comics and vice versa. I'm not going to get into it, but it did make me think. I just had the thought occurred to me that movie and comics move in different time, like sort of zones, as it were, because I was thinking Man of Steel does not feel that old. Right? I mean, I know it's 10 years now this year, but it doesn't feel old.
It feels like a relatively modern movie.
Yeah. But then I thought that was the second, third year of New 52, and I'm like, that feels like an eternity ago in comics.
Was that Villain? No. Villains was the first one, wasn't it? Villains month?
No, Zero issue.
Zero.
First.
It might have been Villains month then.
Yeah. Either Villains or the future one they did that 1 month.
No, that was later. That was like the fourth one, I'm sure.
But I don't know. It got me thinking how like time moves differently depending on what medium you're talking about.
I think part of it is the fact that you get in a franchise like that, you don't usually get one every year, let alone one every month.
Mm-hmm.
Marvel kind of maybe putting that statement to shame a little bit by just throwing every movie as part of the same thing. And you can have 3 a year, but yeah, a lot of the DC movies have not been like that.
No, I mean they want them to be, but they
but
they failed.
They got a long way to go again.
Yeah. We're actually I think The Flash is out this coming weekend.
Yeah, sure it is.
I mean,
it's not a real movie.
I mean, people have seen it now. There was advanced.
That doesn't
previews.
make it real.
People have seen it. I've heard some things actually. I can't say them because they're complete spoilers. But
I have seen some very mixed reviews. Some that are like, it's amazing. It completely proves everyone wrong, and some that are like, yep, that is a movie.
Honestly, the early social media buzz tends to always skew positive. I remember Batman v Superman having positive early buzz. Yeah. And I have never been able to trust such a thing ever again as a result. So, I'm not putting much stock into that, but it is a thing that's existed. It feels weird not to at least mention there's a new DC Comics movie coming out. Of course, will any of us be going to see it? No? I mean, maybe.
I'm definitely not, because after this week, I have no way of getting to the cinema for the foreseeable future.
I mean, I'm definitely not going. I'm just thinking that there's a chance Matt might go. I mean, I don't think he's looking forward to it, but it's the sort of thing where I could see him on a whim. Oh, he's got a Sunday off or something. He's like, I'll just go and see it. But
yeah, I'm hoping I can get to the cinema in time to see Spider-Verse before I lose access for a while.
Yeah, I've not seen that yet. I had to go see the new Transformers this week for the Ace podcast because we've been reviewing all the Transformers films. It's been a very miserable couple of months. I'm not going to lie.
And you got Bumblebee at least.
Well, no, because we did that back early days of the show. Okay. It was all of them except Bumblebee.
So all of them except the best one.
Yeah.
There was someone at work yesterday was trying to describe the one Transformers movie they liked, and they were just like, me and another guy were like, "You're describing every single Transformers movie. You're describing all of them. How are we supposed to guess which one it is here?"
Yeah. It was a pretty miserable time going through those again. And I'd never seen the fifth one, which has its own I almost feel like they're trolling the audience by the time you get to the fifth one and some of the weird retcons it pulls.
Hey, still better than the fourth one.
No, I will agree. Technically, it's better than the fourth one, and both of those are technically better than the second one. But I mean, we are operating in the minutia of shit. Like we're down in the scale, and we're incrementing up a little bit. Yeah.
Okay, with the caveat that I have not watched it in quite a while. In my memory, the first one is still not like an amazing movie, but a solid movie.
Yeah, I remember liking it a bit more at the time as well. It doesn't really hold up now if you watch it with modern eyes and with all the things you don't like about the rest of them, because they're all there. All those things that are problems are still in that first one. But they stick out way more now, and they just like.
That's a shame.
So I cannot recommend any of the Transformers movies, basically.
Is that including the new one?
I mean, it's better than the Bay ones, but
stick to Bumblebee is what I'm hearing.
It's I don't want to get into it. I've not recorded a review for it yet, but it's it's out of utter shit and just into kind of mid territory. If I'm
that's watchable.
Watchable, yes, but. I do think that if that had come out first and that was the one that came out in 2007, it would probably hold up a little better than what the actual first Transformers movie did. But I think there's just a natural thing where it's the seventh one, so it has to be extra impressive. It has to do extra interesting things to be remotely worth mentioning.
That's a shame.
This not. So it's dire times. The reviews of the new Indiana Jones are not looking hot. I have to go see that in a few weeks for review.
Yeah, that's significantly more disappointing than a mediocre Transformers movie.
Yeah, because you're thinking James Mangold usually makes good movies, but it's not seeming like it. And
he's got a Swamp Thing movie coming up, so you better pull it out of the bag for that one.
It doesn't sound. Don't get me wrong. It doesn't sound like it's a complete disaster, but it just doesn't sound like anyone is that passionate about it either. And honestly, at this point, I almost would rather watch a disaster than something that's just kind of okay.
You can get enjoyment out of a disaster. I mean, it can be entertaining.
Case of point, this is a good time to plug this, but so the Collector's Cut, which is the show that I do these franchises on, one by one, with David, we do a monthly Patreon bonus show called Extra Reels, where we do So Bad It's Good movies, and this one's not coming out for like another 2 months, I think. We're a little bit ahead in recording, but we did a Neil Breen movie, right? And it was baffling. You want to yell at the sky, you're swearing, you're laughing in a sort of nervous, I'm going to lose my mind kind of way. It's a roller coaster of emotions discussing the Neil Breen movie. And then we did, as a regular bonus episode, we did another film called Monuments Men, which isn't out for a little bit either, but that was just that sort of mid film. It's just a complete middle of the road. It's just kind of disappointing that it's not remotely engaging despite the good cast that it has and all these other things. And I genuinely found myself talking about that movie going, I miss talking about Neil Breen. I'd
rather watch that.
There was passion. I had passion for Neil Breen. I do not have passion for your middling of the road 5 out of 10 thing.
We've said this, but they're so they're so bland that you end up going, I mean, yeah, it exists. It's not offensive, but yeah.
I feel like it gets worse as well as you get older, just purely because the more things you watch and the more you have to suffer more bland, the bigger sin that bland is to you. Like, the more you get it grates on your soul, and you just don't want bland. So, you know.
Yeah, I can get, if not enjoyment out of something bad, I can get feeling. Like, not to throw any spoilers, but the last issue of Batman, not the one that we're talking about this week, rage-inducing. I was angry after reading that issue.
Well, we weren't too positive on the show for that one. Although I think I was angrier for the one before that. I think I was more pissed off. The one where he loses. I mean, we're not in spoilers yet, but I mean, this is like 2 issues ago in Batman, so I guess spoiler warning if you care. But he lost his hand suddenly, and Matt didn't even notice, and I'm like, he lost a hand, and he's like, what are you talking about? Look there, the panel, he's lost his freaking hand.
I barely noticed. No, the multiverse hopping and what they did with the whole stuff with the Dark Knight Returns, with the what? Why are you answering that question? With the Joker stuff in that book, like, why are you addressing that in this stupid random issue of Batman? Like, stop, leave that alone.
Well, it's issue 900. It's not that
random. Relative to Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah, I mean, I hated that entire arc. It just got worse for me as it went.
Yeah, I got angrier and angrier, and just
And we told you, and part of me was thinking, Connor's going to be contrarian. He's going to read this and sing its praises.
No, the thing is, the first issue, well, I quite liked. The second issue was like, it's not good, but it's not bad. And then it got worse, and then it got worse.
Well, I think it's when they get to that point where here's this guy. Oh, by the way, that's this universe's Joker, and here's his name. Once you hit that point, it's like, oh, what are we doing here? And then it's just down the roller coaster of.
Yeah, I was.
Shit.
No, because I think the first issue, I don't think it was like I really didn't mind it, and I was like, maybe you guys are crazy. Maybe I'm gonna be like, oh, this was a great arc. It was not.
I mean, I wasn't super into that first issue because I just didn't like the idea of doing a multiverse story. But yeah,
well, inherently. But...
Yeah, but it wasn't necessarily that bad on its own. But then it got bad as it went. So, I mean, no thoughts on this week's issue yet. We're going to talk about that later in the show. But I was thinking about it, and I'm like, is this the most I've hated mainline Batman since before Grant Morrison's run? And Grant Morrison's run was like 2006ish that started. Something like that.
Yeah, I was thinking that might be the case.
Because I don't really like a lot of like the back half of Scott Snyder's run, but I don't think I hated it as much as those last couple issues.
You were always kind of just indifferent on it.
Yeah. But even some of the mediocre stuff that came after Morrison, because like Tony S. Daniel was doing some Batman for a bit. Like, I still remember thinking that was all right. It wasn't great, but
yeah, it wasn't good. It wasn't particularly memorable, but
it didn't make me angry.
I don't ever remember being angry at it. Yeah.
So that's a long time. That's quite a strong statement to be able to say this is the worst like run in Batman. I think, at least. I mean, it could obviously upswing and maybe all these other things
so far in almost 20 years.
Oh yeah, I was going to say 15, but you're right. It's I mean, it's what, 17, 18 years that we're 17. Yeah, we're getting
17.
close.
Yeah, well, that's you could say almost 20 at that point.
Yeah. Well, more on the new issue later.
Yeah.
126. Although I will say, I do like that they're keeping the legacy numbering there on the cover. Regardless of,
for a long time, it's the best solution.
Regardless of the quality or whatever, that legacy, I was not. I knew why it was there last time because it was issue 900 and they wanted to celebrate that. But just seeing that little legacy 901, I was like, oh, I like that.
I think they're planning on doing that with Flash and Wonder Woman as well.
Yeah, because they're about to renumber. Yeah.
Yeah, which again, because I'm very pro renumbering, as we've established on this show before. Like, yes, give me new numbers, make it accessible, make it obvious.
Connor can't count
to have the legacy number is there.
Connor can't count to big numbers. Make it easy for him.
It's for in hindsight. Like, tell me what issue of Detective Comics Tynan's run starts at.
Looking it up. 934. I want to say.
All right, now tell me what issue Marika Tamaki starts at.
What's your point? Get to your point.
My point is, you have to actively look these things up. Whereas if you go, oh, Marika Tamaki's Detective Comics issue 1.
Yeah,
That's so much easier for everyone.
But then it's what issue 1? That's more complicated though, because if it's just a number, you look it up and that's the number. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. But if there's like 10 number ones, it's like, okay, it's number 1 from 2000, whatever.
In my system, you tend to be looking for it because you're aware of the creative. That's why Tamaki's detective run or Tynan's detective.
Okay.
And 2, in this system, you're not allowed to renumber during your own run. No. Screw that. Unless you've got a very good reason, like changing your lead character good reason, like, fine. Other than that, no. You carry on and you renumber when you hand it over to the next person.
I'm going to say, even in that circumstance, I don't like it because they renumber it again when they go back to the previous, like the original character, and I think that just makes a complete mess. Yeah. It just makes that a complete mess. So it should just be one run, regardless of the main character changing to Lady Thor or Elektra for Daredevil.
You get one thing, you just say, that's Aaron's Thor, it runs from 1 to 100, or whatever it was, and that's it. Probably wasn't 100. Actually, it might have been.
It could have been close to that.
Yeah, it could have been close.
He had like 4 or 5 series, but that added up by the time he got there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, aye. So more on more on Batman later. This is our show this week.
I suppose we have to talk about it later.
So yes, but hey, Connor, there's always time for a Comixology top 10. You know it's true. And unlike that dreaded week 5 last week, there's actually
So, Pete, what are your thoughts on Manchester City winning the treble?
The treble clef? The treble... is this a Star Trek thing? The trebles? We talk about trebles?
Oh, that's a great idea. But no.
No.
I just think my appreciation of football.
I have no thoughts. I don't even understand... Manchester City as an idea, because there's 2 Manchester teams and I don't understand what the point is.
What do you mean what the point is? There's 2 of them.
But why? Like, if the whole point is you support where you live, then what's the purpose of having 2?
Because they start off as, oh well, this is our team, that's your team, and when it gets they got bigger and like, hang on, we can't both be Manchester, but they are. Birmingham has 2. Liverpool has 2.
Yeah,
London has about 12.
They should all merge. This is all just a waste of time.
So right, okay, so you want Man City and Man United to be the same. You want Liverpool and Everton to be the same. Birmingham and Aston Villa to be the same. Oh, you are causing chaos.
Why is there a team in England called Aston Villa? Doesn't sound very English.
Well, I don't know why they're called that. They just are.
Look, if you bring up football, I'm going to ask the most stupid, dumb questions I can possibly think of.
You did ask the stupid, dumb questions. Do you want me to Google an answer for you?
No, I really don't. I could not give a shit.
You did. I don't know. They're a Birmingham team. I don't know why they're called that.
Why did they even use their feet for the balls? Wouldn't it be easy to just throw the ball into the net?
I would. That's called basketball.
Yeah, but that's a high up net. That's like a little ring. I'm talking the big wide net.
Yeah, it's called handball.
Literally never heard of that, but okay.
I don't think it's quite as wide a net, but it is a sport.
I'll take your word for it, Connor. But there's always time for a Comixology top 10, nonetheless. So we'll look at Tuesday's books and then Wednesday's. So Tuesday, of course, is DC's books. So their current ranking as of right now on Comixology, we have no numbers, of course, but we do have the order of which they've sold in. So any guesses?
Not interesting without numbers, is it?
It's not as interesting, but it's still, there's some stuff to glean.
There is, but without the solid context to ground it, it's like it's all superfluous.
It makes you and Matt miserable, and that's good enough for me.
It does, and especially when Batman is usually the top seller, which I'm guessing it is again.
It is indeed. Batman is number 1 from Tuesday's books. Number 2 is Adventures of Superman, John Kent. So That's neat to see.
I have to assume that's the Tom Taylor name dragging that
I think
up,
it is.
because otherwise I would never have picked that.
Honestly, I've been seeing that a lot recently. I feel like Tom Taylor, Jeff Johns, and Mark Waid all seem to be doing well. Like there's books from some of them I don't expect to do as high as they do, but they do because it's them that are attached to it, and it's kind of showing you that the creators do push sales for books, at least digitally. I mean, obviously with physical copies, if anything, it might be the variant artists that are pushing the books more than anyone else.
Yeah,
but,
and then in the bookstores, it's completely different again.
Yeah, so but it's interesting. And sure enough, number 3 is Dark Knights of Steel, also by Tom Taylor. So Taylor's books seem to be selling well, and in fact, given what I just said there, number 4 is Shazam issue 2 by Mark Waid. So cool. Number 5 is The Flash 800, which does have some Mark Waid in it, but it also has, of course, the final story from the current Flash writer and the first story from the new Flash writer, and a couple other things in there too.
Yeah, I would have. Normally, I probably would have guessed that to be number 2. I guess the Tom Taylor and the Mark Waid name sells more than the Flash at this point. Especially, with the movie coming out this week.
Yeah, it's kind of weird that issue 800, a big milestone issue of The Flash, released 1 week before the Flash movie comes out. Although it's a Flash movie, and I don't want to say name only, because I'm sure there's still flashy things in there, but it's certainly not what I would have put in a Flash number 1 movie. But we've had this conversation before. Yeah, so you would expect that maybe to do a bit better, and maybe this is just down to them not marketing it that well and making a big deal out of it.
Maybe. I wonder if they're saving their efforts for the
number 1,
the new number 1. Yeah,
because that might be coming out when the Flash movie's like hitting, the digital platforms and stuff like that. Maybe close to that time.
Could be
September. Sounds about right. So yeah, number 6 is Steelworks issue 1. Number 7 is Joker, The Man Who Stopped Laughing. I think it's interesting that a Steelworks, even though it is number 1, is outselling a Joker book when that might have been unthinkable some time ago, and maybe it shows that at least the avid digital readers aren't just paying for random Joker books anymore.
That, I wonder if the price is starting to impact that.
True.
That's still $5.99. That's more than every other book I think this week, other than like Flash and Batman, which are bigger issues, right?
Flash and Batman are only $4.99 each. They're cheaper.
Yeah. No. But that's but everything else is only $3.99.
Oh sure, yeah. But Flash is like a 50-page book, so
yeah, and Batman has a backup usually, right? So that's bigger.
So yeah, they're for a game. Number 8 is Peacemaker Tries Hard issue 2. Number 9 is Poison Ivy issue 13. And number 10 is the new talent showcase, which I didn't realize they were still doing these, to be honest, but there it is.
Nor did I. That came out this week?
Is that? Maybe it's not even DC. Let me click on it. Maybe it's just because it's got the same title as what DC used to do. Oh no, it's still technically DC. It's a new talent showcase, the Milestone Initiative. So
that makes sense.
So it's DC still, but it's specifically Milestone. So
yes.
Okay.
Do you know what is interesting as well? Just while we're talking about these being on the Tuesdays, and that being separate. Obviously, in the last few weeks, there was the news with Image also kind of dropping out of being exclusive to Diamond and going to, I think they've gone to Luna, which is obviously DC's one.
Oh.
So, in theory, they could go on the Tuesday as well. There is a very real possibility within the next couple of months that it will be everyone on a Tuesday except Marvel.
But no one else has moved to Tuesday yet, though, right?
Not yet, but they can. They can if they want to, because they're all shipped with the DC books.
That would be interesting. Yeah, if we're looking at everyone on a Tuesday, then just.
I think if obviously once Image was like the next big one, once they've gone, maybe if they decide, well, screw it, Tuesday. I think that could be the case.
Yeah, I don't know. And at that point, if you've got DC and Image, because I would say that right now, Wednesday still feels like the official new comic book day, just because DC is the only one that's changed. But I think if you have Image shifting as well, it probably murkies it enough where now it's either Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on what you like to buy.
It is. I think the thing is, right now with a lot of stores, they don't even bother putting the DC books out on a Tuesday.
Yeah,
They just wait, do it all at once. This is, they can organize everything all in one go. They don't have to do it all at, two separate times to, go through it all. It's just easier to keep their workflow as it was. But if more and more of them start pushing for Tuesday,
which
who knows?
Honestly is kind of weird to me. Like, I get that they're used to doing it all in one go, but I also, from time to time listen to comic book podcasts that include people who work in comic book stores, and one of the things that I always hear is how hectic a Tuesday night is, like getting all the books ready for the next day. Surely half of them being done on a different night would make both days more manageable.
Possibly, but I think what you have to consider as well is that a lot of comic stores, especially smaller ones, will close early on a Tuesday. So they're not, they know it's for a small comic shop that deals with monthlies on a regular basis. Probably like 70-80% of their sales are the monthly comics versus trades and other things. Most of those customers, again, are the ones that are going to be coming in on the Wednesday.
Well,
that's the new day.
Come on, it's like 20% single issues, 5% trades, and then 75% Funko Pops. Let's be honest.
Those are your mega stores, yes. That's why I'm specifically talking about the smaller comic stores.
I mean, I joked that. I don't even think Funko Pops, because didn't they have to destroy a lot of stock last year or something? So I think that fad is over. But there was a time there for a couple of years.
I was in a Forbidden Planet earlier today. There is significantly less Funko Pops than there used to be. Still a lot of other stuff because that's what they do, but
but that's what I'm saying. I bet it's not replaced with more books again. It's probably just other novelty stuff and other collectibles.
It's more diverse though. I'll give it that. It's not all just Funkos. There's a lot. Blind bags are kind of a big thing right now, from what I can see. There's a lot of variety of those.
Okay.
But for little collectible figures and like things like that, but. There's a lot of, again, diversity in what they are, as opposed to all, they share a common theme with being just, blind bags of a collection. But other than that, they are different. But I don't mind that. But, your small comic stores that are dealing primarily with comics, probably not even with that much manga. They're dealing a lot of single issues. A lot of those people are going to come in on the Wednesday. And I think, so by the time it gets to Tuesday, your customer base is at its presumably at its lowest point of the week. Monday, Tuesday's got to be the lowest. So a lot of them will close early just so they can spend a few hours processing everything and getting it all set up for the Wednesday morning.
I do wonder though, this is maybe going to be different as more shift to Tuesday, and it might be worth shifting what used to be their Tuesdays now they're Monday kind of thing. But I do wonder, let's say it's still just DC for a while. I wonder if for a small comic shop, how many customers who aren't regulars yet come in on a Tuesday asking for DC books and get turned away. How many of those does it take before they reconsider how they deal with their DC books?
Good question.
Because, if you're a DC fan and that's specifically what you really want to buy, I mean, maybe you'll grab some other things when you're there, you try some other stuff, but let's say you mostly buy DC. You go in that Tuesday to a new shop to try it. They say, "Oh, we don't put our DC books out until the Wednesday." You probably just go elsewhere, and you might. I'm not saying you necessarily. Oh, I'm never coming back because they've insulted me. How dare they? But if you leave with that impression and you go somewhere else, you might just stick to wherever you go instead, rather than coming back.
There's three possibilities. One, the customer goes, "Okay, fair enough. I'll come in on Wednesdays in future." There's definitely a certain amount of people who just don't care enough about that day. They know DC's day is Tuesday, but they're like, whatever, I can wait the day. They didn't know this time. It won't matter much in the long run. There's people who, like you say, will go to another shop that will have them out if there is another shop available. That's always, a possibility that they don't. The third option is that for whatever reason, they're a person that's incredibly online. They're very afraid of spoilers on a Tuesday. That's why they go and seek out their books on a Tuesday. There's no other comic store. They're the people who might shift to digital, and they get lost completely in terms of those stores.
Yeah, I mean, a few years ago, I actually toyed with switching to physical again, just because I wanted to enjoy reading a book in my hands for a bit, and I ended up quitting and sticking with digital. Because every so often there'd be a delay, and just from my store specifically saying, "Oh, we're not going to get these books in for an extra week or something like that," and I do a podcast. I kind of need to read the books on the week they came out.
It's actually it's a little bit different over here in the UK because we're still getting every book through Diamond. Even DC books, they come through Diamond International, so they're all shipped over and brought out from that. They come out on Wednesdays here, no matter what. Whether the stores would like to put them out on a Tuesday, regardless.
That makes sense.
They don't get them on time.
Except, of course, digitally, I assume.
Digitally, obviously, DC Day, so Amazon will have them up ready on a Tuesday. So, that is already an argument for digital if you wanted to look at it that way.
It tells you how long it's been since I've rushed to get my books on the day they released that I had to double check there if they come out on Tuesdays here.
You say that as if during the Comixology top 10 you don't have to separate them by a Tuesday and Wednesday.
Yeah, that's a good point. No, but I'm on US Comixology.
Oh, okay. Well, I think UK they come out on Tuesday. I'm sure they come out on Tuesday.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they do. It's just been such a long time since I've went on release day to get them. I usually get them on a Friday, just because that's when I'm starting to think about reading my books for the podcast. But yeah,
it wouldn't be nice. Wouldn't it be nice if Amazon still had the subscriptions thing and you didn't have to worry about it and they just did it for you?
I there are times when I'm really excited and into things, and I care about getting things on the day it comes out, and it would annoy me having to wait the extra day. But for the most part, I'm quite happy just as long as I can read them for when I expect to be able to, which in our case is for the show. I'm not that fussed, but I get if you're excited though, and somewhere's saying, "Oh, we're not putting these out." Why? That could annoy me if I cared and I wanted to get them.
It's hard for me to just because I'm at least 1 month behind, if not multiple, on most of my books for DC right now. Because I read, especially that period where I was not getting the right days off, so I wasn't on the show for a while. I've been reading everything on Infinite, because it's only 1 month behind, and I can, other than when I'm on the show, I can live with that. That's not that far.
Well, you're successfully dragging this Comixology top 10 out, so I'll do the Wednesday book, shall I?
I thought you'd forget. So you'd just be like, well, we'll move on.
Any guesses to what number one from Wednesday is?
Hang on. Let me have a quick glance at what actually got published by Marvel.
There's so many X-Men books you could pick.
There is. I'm seeing two immediately. I'm like, who? Two obvious. But is it that? Okay, just tell me this. Is it one of the new number ones?
No.
Okay. In that case, I'm going to go with Immortal X-Men.
It is Immortal X-Men, issue 12. That's number one. Which is the Kieran Gillen book. And then number 2 is X-Men, issue 23 by Jerry Duggan. Yes. Number 3 is X-Men Before the Fall, Mutant First Strike, issue 1.
What the hell? I didn't even see that one on it.
I had to open it up.
Oh, it's all the way down there.
Yeah, Steve Orlando, apparently, on that. And then number 4 is The Ambassadors, issue 6, which is not a Marvel book. That's a Mark Miller book. Number 5 is Daredevil, issue 12 by Chip Zdarsky, which, again, we talked about renumbering things. There's no way he's only on issue 12 of his run, but here we are.
No, he did. So he had a main run, and then he had a mini where it was not Matt as Daredevil.
It was Elektra, I think, wasn't it?
Yes. And then it relaunched, I think, after that. Because reasons.
Prime example, though. Prime example.
Do you know the worst part of that is? It's still Chiquetto on art, which I'm pretty sure he was the artist on the first couple of issues originally as well. So it's not even like it's a massive shake-up. It's the same book.
Yeah. Number 6 is Fantastic Four, issue 8. Number 7 is Invincible Iron Man, issue 7. Number 8 is Loki, issue 1 by Dan Waters and Dustin Wynn, funnily enough. Number 9 is Bishop War College, and number 10 is Spider-Man, issue 9, which, not that we talk about Marvel news on this show, but I think I saw this week that Superior Spider-Man's coming back with Dan Slott.
Yes, yeah, it is. Because Spider-Man has had no new ideas in a long time.
Dan Slott needs to leave it alone for a start.
I don't even hate Dan Slott in the same way that some people do.
I don't hate him either, but he wrote so many issues of Spider-Man. He has
written more issues of Spider-Man than anyone else.
He's had his fill. We can move on.
Yeah, and Superior Spider-Man. I know it was controversial, but it was at least a fresh idea at the time. now it's just we don't know what else to do.
That was right around when the New 52 was starting, was it not? I'm just thinking because I remember DC timeline quite well, and Marvel I tend to remember by like what was going on at DC at that time. I might say it was around the same time.
2013 it started.
Oh, it was a little bit later, so I was a couple of years into the New 52. All right.
Yeah, not far though.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, there you go.
It was January 2013, so it was like 15 months in.
So we're all on the third trades, effectively, of New 52 at that point.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, there you go. That's a Comixology Top 10. As promised, Connor's favourite segment, Matt's favourite segment. Everyone's my favourite segment.
Lies and slander.
We have a bit of news, actually. We have an exciting bit of news. This was news that came out of nowhere this week and highly piqued my curiosity.
Interest?
Yeah, my interest. I wasn't curious. I knew I was in. Like I was ready to jump.
It stoked your passions.
Yes. It piqued my passion. Which sounds a bit dirty.
Yeah, I said stoked, not peaked. You made it worse.
Piqued my passion. So no, we're getting a new Birds of Prey book. But more notably, a writer from Marvel that we have been asking to jump ship to DC for literally years. And you know what? Tom Taylor, it happened with him quite quick, where we wanted Tom Taylor to jump ship, and it happened.
It felt like a while at the time, but
it wasn't really.
It's not really that
technically, he was already doing Injustice, so he wasn't like completely not in DC, but like it was out of the realm of anything we were looking at. So Kelly Thompson is finally coming to DC Comics, and she is going to be writing a new Birds of Prey book, which is super cool.
I remember it being someone I liked on art as well.
Yeah, Leonardo Romero is the artist.
Yeah, I've seen some of the stuff that they've been working on. It looks good.
Yeah. Really cool. So, and we've got like a new lineup as well. It's a unique lineup where only one of the original Birds is on the team and is the leader of the team. And Kelly Thompson sort of revealed a member each day. So I'll try and do it in the order she revealed it, just from memory. But so Black Canary is the leader of the team. Yes. She's there. And then she was revealed Cassandra Cain, and I went, oh, that's an interesting little addition.
It's interesting because I think, obviously, okay, you've already said there was only one of the original members, so I'm not spoiling anything now by saying Babs isn't here.
Yeah.
I think this is an interesting, like, replacement, like Batgirl for Batgirl, almost.
Yeah, but when Babs, I mean, obviously...
It was as Oracle, yes.
Yeah, not including some of the newer teams where she was Batgirl again. Like, she was never, like, out there actively fighting with the team, so this does feel different to me, having Cass there.
Yeah, but I think it's notably, like, kind of like the same, like, family-style replacement.
Yeah. But then things got really weird with number 3, which was Big Barda. I'm like, okay, all right.
That was the bit where I went, okay, I think I'm into this. Like, I mean, as if I wasn't by the team anyway, but just like in terms of the lineup.
Yeah, it was like, now we're doing something different. We're not just doing the same old thing. And then 4 was Zealot from the Wildcat stuff, which, you know, like, I dropped off that book even though there was some fun stuff to be had in it because it was too much to like get to know all these characters. Having just one of these characters on a team of people that I know is a lot more appealing. It's a lot more enticing to get to know them that way. It's
not like a positive or a negative to have her here specifically.
No.
But it's more like one of those, okay, I'm not familiar, but having one of these characters bouncing off all the other characters I do know might make her, you know, more interesting, memorable, you know, easier to get a hold of as a character.
Yeah. And then the last member was Harley Quinn, which bizarrely, because of that damn movie that came out, like, she's kind of associated with Birds of Prey now, even though she wasn't originally in the comics.
The way Kelly Thompson was talking about it, though, because like she was tweeting, obviously, you know, with these reveals, like, yeah, we knew this one was going to be divisive.
Well, I think the phrase she used was wild card, which made me think she's the Charlie Day of the team, but, you know.
Yes. I don't know if that was a not intentional choice. And I don't know if this was an editorial mandated thing, as you have to have Harley on this team. But also, I can see Kelly Thompson wanting Harley, right? It's her sort of character. And like I say, you know, throwing a wild card with the rest of that team.
Look, I love Dinah. I love Cass. I quite like Barda. So I mean, 3 out of 5, just heavily in the positive, is like enough to like get. And Kelly Thompson made me enjoy a Rogan Gambit book, and I hate Gambit.
Yeah, Gambit's a boring bastard.
So I mean, like even if I don't end up loving Zealot, and even if I'm never sold on Harley's inclusion, which I think I will be, to be honest, because I don't hate Harley. I think Harley's perfectly fine in lots of circumstances.
If you hated Harley, you wouldn't love Harleen.
Yeah, Harleen's fantastic. It's all just about the approach, and I think Kelly Thompson's typical sense of humor and the way she writes characters, I think, will work well here.
Yeah, I think this will be more the quote unquote traditional approach to Harley Quinn in the current inclusion of her style. But I expect Thompson to do it well.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about Taylor earlier, but like, Harley was on his Suicide Squad, and she was never a problem there. Like, she was a fine, quirky character in the team with some funny lines. I can see this being kind of this is neat. Obviously, I hope it's a door for more Kelly Thompson books at DC, but we have to start with one, and this is a pretty strong lineup to start with.
Also, I haven't seen this confirmed by Thompson or anywhere else, but I have seen people saying this is actually a rotating roster. So there'll be some of these will be leaving and others will be coming in as the book goes on.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. I don't know what to speculate on that really, other than just I expect Black Canary will be the one who never leaves because she's the one in charge. But
yeah.
That's curious. Obviously, like she's been I think she's still been doing Captain Marvel at Marvel, but like I think
it's just about wrapped up. Or maybe it's still going. It definitely got to the 50s.
Yeah, but a lot of her other books, like recently that I enjoyed. I mean, they were a couple of years ago now, but her Kate Bishop was great, but lasted only a few trades. And then West Coast Avengers was great, but only lasted 10 issues.
Oh, man.
It kind of felt like they kept cancelling her stuff too early.
We're going to get a new Jeff the Landshark.
It'll be Frank the air turtle or something. I don't know.
Sold.
The Sky Turtle. Frank the Sky Turtle. There you go.
I'm in for it. I really enjoyed Kelly Thompson's Black Widow book.
Oh, yeah.
It was essentially not too far off it being a kind of Birds of Prey book in its own right.
I don't think that lasted that long either, did it?
No, it was like 2 trades. Just, God damn it. DC, you better not screw this up. Give it at least 18 issues, minimum.
Yeah. I like 30. 30 is an omnibus size.
Look, I want a minimum of 3 trades. Minimum. But, yeah, I'm really excited for this. It's probably one of the most exciting announcements that DC have done in a while. And they've had some pretty good announcements.
Yeah, it makes me feel a little bit better about Batgirl's ending. That not just because Castle have a home to go to, but it's kind of, like once upon a time, I'd have said Kelly Thompson would be like my perfect pick for a Batgirl book. So having her on this is kind of like, close enough.
Next best thing, yeah.
So hopefully this leads to more work with her at DC. And to be fair, most of the writers that I've wanted for Marvel that have came over have worked out quite well. I think obviously Taylor has been killing it with Nightwing, and we've loved some of his other stuff, Deceased and things like that. I think Tamaki had a really great run in Detective and an enjoyable period on Wonder Woman. And I hope she keeps getting more DC work as well.
Seems a shame whatever happened with the Green Lantern stuff behind the scenes with that.
Yeah. And then, a G. Wilson's Wonder Woman wasn't as amazing as I think we all hoped it might be, but I hope they keep trying with her as well, because she was another great grab from the Marvel side of things. And I didn't know Kelly Sue that well, but she was also kind of a grab from Marvel, and her Aquaman was great.
I mean, lower on the scale, but Alyssa Wong doing the Spirit World book, it's another Marvel grab.
Oh, is it? Okay, I didn't know who that was, so...
she's been doing the Afra book for years. And amongst other things, but that's what I've been reading for a while.
But yeah, so this was delightful news this week. And now, now I think one of the best writers currently doing mainstream comics can do some stuff at DC now is just a nice it's a nice turn of events that I didn't necessarily see coming anytime soon. So
yeah.
Although it does make sense when you stop and think about all of her books, other than Captain Marvel being like ending quite soon, over the last like 5 years at Marvel, it makes sense why she would maybe be more tempted to go and jump ship to somewhere else.
Do you know, you mentioned a Captain Marvel, so I'm thinking as well. There was that period, I don't know if you were still reading it, in the kind of the other dimension sort of section.
I don't think I got too far into her Captain Marvels. I think I read the first like 2 trades worth, which I think started off with her going into like another dimension.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know where it was. I read like 40 issues of that run, so I don't remember where it was. Yeah, it was like it was kind of another dimension. It was kind of like a time bubble thing. But she kind of formed a team in there as well with like I think Echo was on it and a couple others.
I remember this. Yeah.
That was kind of a very Birds of Prey-esque sort of setup.
She's been training. She's been training
she's
for
had
this.
A couple of practice runs. Yeah.
That's cool. So that is coming. When did they say that? Was that September? That's coming. Have they said? I think it said September. I'm sure that's what she tweeted. Yeah, September 5th.
That makes sense. That's kind of when we're due the next round of books after this break.
It's also the next month we're getting solicits for as well.
Yeah. When are we due September solicits? Next week?
Probably next week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah. And the last solicit was really boring because it was just the second half of Night Terrors, so.
Oh, God, don't remind me. I can't remember what book it was I got to the end of this week when I was reading it, and it said next time Night Terrors. I went, oh, already? Please, no.
I know. I feel the pain.
Do you know what it was? I think it was Shazam.
Yeah. Oh, to be fair, I do think the Shazam Night Terrors is probably one of the ones that I'm looking forward to most. But
yeah, it just reminded me about the existence of the concept, though.
I know. It's going to be kind of a miserable couple of months, probably, but hey, it is what it is. All right. So, yeah, with all that said, we can get on to the comics for the week. We'll start off with The Flash, issue 800. There's 5 stories, so we'll go through creators as we hit them. But obviously, the first story is the Jeremy Adams stuff. This is kind of his little finale, which is kind of standalone on its own as well. So even for you probably didn't feel like this.
I honestly, I didn't read this issue because I assumed, like these issues always are, that it was 80% the end of the run, and then like here's like a few little like 3 or 4 page stories. Like most of these have been in the past.
Nah, not really.
Okay. Well,
like the writer,
kind of on me, I guess.
Like Jeremy Adams does write the first issue, the first story, but the first story, it's relatively standalone in what it's doing. Like you could have put that in any special Flash issue. Honestly, I was pleasantly surprised overall with this issue because sometimes these can feel like a collection of shorts that are just kind of fluffy. There is 1 or 2 that are a little fluffy, but I would say that I quite like 3 out of the 5 stories, and importantly, one of the ones that I quite liked was the new writer. There was the new team.
Cy Spurrier, right?
Cy Spurrier for the new run. So, no, I was feeling quite good about this by the time I wrapped up with it. They're not all amazing, but the quality, and I think part of what maybe helped here is that it's only 50 pages with 5 stories as opposed to 100 pages with like 10. Like that
probably does help.
I do think that helps. So yeah, the first story is Jeremy Adams, Fernando Persarin, and it's a fun little standalone thing actually, where it's a bunch of C-list and D-list villains sitting around, talking about going to different cities, and you know, one's like, oh, you don't go to Metropolis because of this, and you don't go to Gotham because that Batman's crazy, and someone is like, oh yeah, but like, you know, Central City's quite cushy, you can go and rob a bank there. And then like one of them's like, what, are you crazy? The Joker went there once, and like, you know, they tried to release his Joker gas, and like the Flash got him like before anything happened. And then there's like a funny little joke with Condiment King where he tried to rob a bank in Central City, and I'll just read out what Condiment King says in this one panel. Let us catch up to the scenario. I'm robbing this bank and all of its cheese. And then he gets swished out of the bank and ends up in a desert somewhere. And apparently took him a year to get home. So
that's kind of brutal. Jeez.
It just got a long time to travel home, that's all.
Yeah, but like abandoned in the desert.
I assume he's near the touristy parts where you can
If that was the case, he'd get a flight.
Maybe he can't get a flight. I don't know. He's a criminal.
Well, he's got a passport with him, I suppose.
No passport. Yeah, there's a lot of red tape to get through.
Yeah.
Hey,
just imagine him sat in the embassy.
As far as punishments go for robbing a bank, like this doesn't seem that bad. Years in prison versus
I
this.
don't know. At least that's actually like mandated and regulated, not just.
It's meant to be
a desert.
It's meant to be a fun little joke. Stop picking at it.
No, it's a very harsh punishment. I think that this is the Flash. Wait, which Flash is it in this? Is it still Wally?
It doesn't. It's Wally in the run. It doesn't specify which Flash they're telling the story about, though.
Oh, okay.
So unknown. They do mention Wally's kids though, and how they're a nightmare, and how Thunderheart, which is Iray's superhero name now, like she might just give you a wedgie when she's done punching you at super speed, just because it makes her laugh. So she's a kid. But anyway, yeah. So, and there's a whole bit where Wally chased down Mordru because he stole a lollipop from someone, and he chased Mordru to the end of the universe just to get this lollipop back. It's all very lighthearted and got kind of a tongue-in-cheek kind of vibe to it. So, you don't want to take any of it too seriously. But it's all building up, though, to this criminal who's like, I robbed a bank in Central City today. And the rest of them start freaking out, and then the doorbell goes, and it's just Wally standing there. And that's the end of the story. Like, it's basically just a fun little kind of like, what the villains think of the Flashes and how dangerous Central City is, and how in some ways it's scarier to go there than it is Metropolis or Gotham, because the speedsters are actually like impossible to deal with, unless you're either a speedster yourself and they mention the rogues, but like they're just crazy. Like there's a reason why they're a bunch of losers, because they're not smart enough to get away from the speedsters. So yeah, I thought it was a fun little story. I admittedly, I was expecting some kind of like, full stop, some, like a final punctuation on his run. Instead, it was kind of just a standalone little thing. They referenced the family, so, it still feels like it fits, but it definitely works for just if you just picked this up and haven't been reading the run. The second story is the Mark Waid story with Todd Nuck on art. Todd Nuck just did the Stargirl mini with Johns.
Yes.
So that's where I know the artist from. But this is an Impulse story where, again, it's very lighthearted. It's got a lot of fun Flash vibes in it, where Mirror Master's trapped Wally and Max Mercury in a mirror dimension, and they're relying on Impulse to run around and get the mirror gun back so that he can let them out. But then he breaks it. But it's mostly just kind of like the dialogue and the back and forth, where basically Wally's getting really frustrated and yelling at him because Bart just keeps running off before he finishes sentences or getting instructions properly. And the ultimate thing at the end is that Wally's like, you know what, Max, you put up with him all the time. I have so much respect for you right now. So it's just kind of a nice little primer on the type of personality that Bart has and how the rest of them have to deal with him. And obviously he does save the day ultimately in the end. And even at the end, Wally, when he says thank you, he looks really annoyed about it because it's been a nightmare putting up with him.
I can imagine, yeah.
Yeah. So I really enjoyed it. Again, this was another good little standalone story that I felt had enough of a hook to what the story was. That it didn't just feel like fluff. Whereas I do think the middle two that are coming up next, which is the Williamson story, where it's Barry taking Iris on a date, and he uses the cosmic treadmill to go into the future and see their kids in the future, the twins. And then there's just a lot of narration about how much family means to the Flash and how important everyone is. It turns out that it's Wally talking about Barry to Linda because they're babysitting, or well, not babysitting because they're kids, but you know what I mean. Like they're at home with the kids, and then Barry and Iris come back at the end and they just kind of all hug, and that's basically all it is. It's perfectly fine, but it kind of falls into that trappings that a lot of these stories do in these specials, where it's less of a story and more just here's the characters talking about like what makes them nice. So here's here's 8 to 10 pages of just this is the Flash family and we all love each other very much. Here's some sentimental stuff. So
Yeah, which is usually what most of the things in these specials are.
Most of them, yeah. But to be fair, I really like the first two stories, so I think this one, because it was the first one that felt like this, it wasn't too bad, but it definitely stuck out to me as being that's what this is. And then the fourth story, which is the Jeff Johns one, like it kind of falls into the same sort of thing, but except for the Flash family, it's more about Zoom. So it's just kind of re-establishing who Zoom is, what his motives are, how he became Zoom, how he wants to make Wally a better Flash, talking about how his father was a murderer and all that. And that's basically all it is. It's just kind of him reiterating all this. So again, I kind of felt like it didn't really have a story as much as it was just Jeff Johns reminding everyone, hey, this is the reverse Flash I made. This is his shtick.
So it was a wiki entry with art.
It kind of was. This one kind of was. It does, however, though, have... was it Scott Collins, I want to say? I think go back to the credits page.
That's a classic Jeff Johns Flash artist.
It was one of Jeff Johns' like Flash artists on it. Yeah, Scott Collins, I was right. So it's got that classic look. So there was a bit of nostalgia. If you've read Johns' Flash run from that 2000s time period, you'll probably feel something for this seeing it again. But it really is just the little short story of nostalgia rather than actually having any kind of story with a point at the end. It's basically it's Zoom just saying, I'll always be Zoom and this will always be what I'm trying to do. Okay, we've learned nothing new then is what you're saying.
Zoom, baby.
That's it. I mean, I guess these do have a bit of a purpose in that if you're a newer reader and you don't know Zoom, you've not read his Flash run, maybe this makes you want to read Johns' Flash run. It might, but...
Maybe? I don't know. It feels like it's there to pad out the page count.
Well, I get it. I mean, Johns is an important writer to the Flash. He's got probably the most well-respected Flash run that there is outside of Waid, maybe. So it makes sense that they gave Waid a story, they gave Johns a story. Like, I understand it. I suppose the critique then is maybe on Johns of saying, hey, why didn't you actually, do a story? As opposed to just, here's who Zoom is. And
he was busy that week.
Yeah. Because obviously all of the things that he brings up, it's all in that original run. Like, it's all revealed in that run.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So, but that leads us to the final story, which is the Cy Spurrier story.
Which is arguably the most important one of the issue. Yeah,
because this is the one that's actually, a tease of the new run to come. And I'm happy to say that I quite like this. And I especially like the art, because the art felt very different to anything I've seen in Flash in quite some time. It starts off with Wally and Linda on a date. And
who was the artist? Sorry?
It's not on this page. I'll tell you when I get to the credits page.
I see.
But it starts off with them on a date, and Wally's basically narrating and saying that he's promised Linda that there's no powers tonight, but he can't help but, go and do things when he hears something. So he's basically sneaking off with his super speed, like when she blinks, to go and like save someone or do something somewhere. And then there's like a sort of like ripple in the speed force or something. I can't remember the exact word that he used for it. There was a blip. And sure enough, he ends up running into what turns out to be Mirror Master in like a tech, like mech suit kind of thing. And it's like someone's given Mirror Master this technology, which is probably teasing who the real villain of the first arc is going to be in the run. But it's caused this. But it's got the art is wonderful, and it does this thing as well where there's a lot of I don't even know how you describe this. There's probably a name for this. It's like, so there's a lot of, it's like a grid of panels, right? And most of the panels are filled in, but some of them do have negative white space around the border, and there's really no, like, how do I explain this? So some of the panels make up one big panel, but there's just, so if you imagine a normal comic layout, right, where let's say you've got like a panel in the corner, and then but that's on top of like a bigger panel that takes up half the page, and then there's like maybe 3 panels at the bottom or something, right? Just like a typical comic layout. Yep. It's kind of like it's still got that layout, but everything takes place in this very specific grid, which has got 4x4 in the middle, but there's kind of like half panels all around the edge as well.
I get it. So it's a full image split up into gridded panels anyway. Like it's like fractured. Yeah, I've seen that before.
Yeah. And a lot of the books like that. And effectively, there's a page where Wally's running, and it does that classic comic book thing where it looks almost 3D because he's going on top of the break lines of the panels. He's kind of on top of it, so it
goes
looks
out of the panel.
yeah, so he's kind of popping through it. So it's very, very good. Like, but I think the thing I really like though is the facial expressions and like just Wally and Linda sitting at the table for their date. It's just an art style that I've not seen on Flash in quite some time. It's got almost a I don't want to say Farnese, but it's definitely kind of like leaning towards that direction. But yeah. So now we hear a voice talking to Mirror Master at the end, and saying, like all these basically Mirror Master stole a lot of energy from the Speed Force with this suit, but he's failed to do anything here. But the voice says, Mr. McCulloch, before the criminal Wally West returns to torment you further, there's still so much to do. So whoever this is thinks Wally's a bad guy, or at least from their perspective, they think Wally West is a criminal. So probably someone who's upset that he's messed about with time or something. Possibly.
I mean, wouldn't be the first time.
I would expect that's probably the case. But yeah, and at the end of the issue as well, Wally comes back and he thinks he's gotten away and gotten back in time before she'll notice, which I do have to critique a little bit because there's a couple of moments when he's fighting Mirror Master where he says things to him, which says to me that at least some time is passing whilst he's fighting Mirror Master. It's not all in the blink of an eye, so
yeah.
that doesn't quite work. But when he gets back though, and he lands in the restaurant, he thinks he's gotten away with it, but Linda looks over and like there's just chairs all over the place and stuff. Like the force of him coming back in is just like completely wrecked the place. And so it's teasing that he's going to deal with maybe like the marital kind of struggles of like someone living with a speedster and like what that means, because she's not like even mad at him or disappointed. She's just not surprised that he kind of like went against his word and went and used his powers anyway. So it feels like this is something they're going to be tackling within the book. So I mean, as a mission statement of an issue to say, hey, like we're going to be dealing with this part of his personal life. The marriage is important. The kids probably are too. But so it's teasing his villain, it's teasing the art style, and it's saying, hey, we're going to be talking about his marriage. Like, I think it does a good job of setting up what the book's going to be. Yeah, and the art on this was Mike Diodato Jr.
Oh, okay. So I've seen again another poach from a lot of Marvel work. What's the closest DC artist I can think of? It's like heavy dark shadows, right?
Yeah, heavy dark shadows with like
maybe.
I would say
Closest I can think of is Perkins.
Yeah, it's a little. It's kind of like Perkins meets a Farnese because it's got like dark shadows, but it's also got kind of flat faces. They're very expressive though, but they're kind of flat as well at the same time, in a good way. Like it looks really good. It's got a really specific style to it, which is good. I'm excited. So I hope Diodato Jr. is doing a lot of the art. So I would say I thought the first two stories were great little standalone stories about how the villains see the Flash, and then about Impulse, and then the last story I thought was a really good tease of what this new run's going to be. And and I was sorry to see Adams go, but this tease has made me kind of excited for the new run, which I guess mission accomplished. And the other two stories aren't bad. Like they're perfectly fine and they fill that void. I think I'd be more frustrated with them if this was like twice the length and there was like another 5 of them, because it's just the 2 of them and the stuff around it is better. It kind of works well enough as the middle chapters of this special issue. So overall I'm relatively happy with this. As far as these specials go with all the little short stories, this is on the better end of it for sure.
It's good to know. If I'd realized it was more a special as opposed to the ending of I was very much under the impression it was the end of the Adams run, and then here's a few extra little backups on top.
Yeah, I mean, most of his story beats did wrap up in the last issue, so it's not that surprising, I guess, in the grand scheme of things. I hope that Wonder Woman's kind of similar, because I've not been reading that run, but I do plan on reading issue 800 because it's setting up the new run, and it's setting up whatever. So
yes,
hopefully.
That must be coming this month as well, right?
I'm sure it is, yeah. So these are weird ones to rate, but I'd probably throw it an 8 overall. I think how excited that last story had me for the feel of what the new run's going to be, and the tone that it had, and it's so different from what Flash has been up until recently that like I think it's a success story of an issue. With some other fun one-offs as well as a bonus and some okay things in the middle. So yeah. Flash 800. If you're a Flash fan, I think there's some stuff to enjoy in here. So cool. All right, Batman 136 or Legacy 901. As I pointed out earlier, I really like that they're doing this. Keep
I
it up.
do too. This way, we all win, right? Like, none of us can complain.
Yes, and that is where my positive thoughts on this issue end.
Oh, thank God. Well, no. I'll give it one more.
Oh, sure.
The Batacombs. I'm all there for that name.
Sure.
That's on the first page, but then my positive thoughts end.
Yeah, I mean, I don't dislike it as much as the last two issues. I mean, I'll say
think
that.
It's an issue of fluff.
And
I think if you throw this issue in the middle of a really fun run, and it's just this fluffy break, like, yeah, that's okay. But when it's supposed to be this return after this really dark arc, like this is, Bruce is really mentally subjected to a lot of stuff, and this is supposed to be like, showing how almost broken he is. I think it goes a little too far with the fluff.
I think my issues with it are that when we left the regular universe and we followed him to this other universe for a while, like Failsafe was still like doing stuff, and I feel like there's no like they talk about Failsafe they say he's still out there in this issue, but it doesn't feel like he's got the city by the balls anymore or anything like that. He's just kind of not around.
No, he's definitely not actively hunting for Batman either, like you'd think maybe he would be.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I think I was interested when he first brought up the Batman of Zur-En-Arrh, but now that we're still doing it and Bruce is still getting into his mind and talking to Zur-En-Arrh, I'm just kind of like I'm so down in all the concepts that he's playing with right now in this story. Even down to the fact that when he goes to see Selina and Selina mentions, oh, by the way, Cobblepot faked his death, he's not dead, and Bruce is like, what?
That's a full breakdown, like, what? I didn't kill him.
That's why Failsafe wanted to like come after me. You've seen all of this happened for nothing?
Like, he's like, you're not meant to keep secrets from me. She's like, yeah, well, you weren't meant to keep secrets like Failsafe. And he's like, well, that was a secret from me too. Like, then how am I supposed to work with this?
Yeah, also I think the art's a little like there's a lot of faces in this that I'm not super into. Particularly whenever like we're looking at sort of a slightly down angle at someone's face, I feel like they look especially kind of rough.
There's when Selina's in disguise and she goes to take a bite of the sandwich, and there's the shock of when she sees Bruce. It's one specific panel that I just think looks rough. There's a trend as well. I notice it now. Women, when they have their mouths open, and for whatever reason, there's a panel of Babs that did the exact same to me, where I'm like, oh, that's kind of a weird panel.
Yeah. So the important things in here, other than just generally Bruce is having a bit of a nervous breakdown because of everything that's going on, is and the family being there for him. It ends with this kind of happy bit towards the end where like all the family have lured him back to the mansion to like hang out and have dinner because he's refusing to like relax. Is that the Penguin kids, the twins, are expanding the casino business, and Bruce goes after to hunt some of that.
That doesn't go amazingly.
No, because the son ends up having like super strength or something and beats the shit out of him.
I don't even think he's super strong. Like, it just sounds like because Bruce he's fast, he is strong, and I underestimate him. I don't think he is. I don't know if he is super or not, or if he is just
maybe, yeah.
Very strong, like in a human sense, though.
Also, he's hiding the fact that he's missing a hand, and he's got like a robotic hand from everyone. Yeah. Which I'm just see, as soon as his hand was cut off, I got annoyed because I'm like, this is something that we're going to have to deal with for ages, and then there's just going to be some weird like fix for it where someone gives him a perfect like looking hand that's actually cybernetic underneath. And I'm like, until we retcon everything again, I'm going to have to know that he's got like a cybernetic hand now.
Or do we still have that cloning device that Scott Snyder created?
Oh, I hope not.
Because we can just grow a clone and chop its hand off and sew it on.
This is kind of like that stuff where just conceptually, I don't like something that you've included here, and annoyingly, it's going to just technically be there persisting until everything's retconned. Because you can't just like bring his real hand back all of a sudden, unless there's magic involved, I guess. Which maybe they will. I don't know.
Has he got a robot hand at the minute? I'm like blanking already. It's just that forgetful, the hand stuff.
He's got, when he's talking to Mr. Terrific at the start, he's got what looks like a sort of dark hand. So I assume it's some sort of mechanical thing, or they never really go into it as exactly what it is. But yeah, I know he's wearing the gloves to cover it up, but I guess it's just robot hand. Yeah, well, that's just the easiest explanation, I guess.
Yeah.
Or did he get something last issue at some point? I can't remember.
I don't know. I was too busy being angry.
Also, there's a bit of dialogue in here that really stuck out to me. Right, I don't think Zdarsky's voice for Batman has typically been that great, but there's a line in here that sounded really off. It's the sort of thing I can see Nightwing saying. I can see Dick saying this and with a smirk in his face and it working. But especially given his Batman state right now, where he's like in a super dark place, like you said, after everything he's went through.
He's basically broken.
Yeah. He shows up at the sort of the mini casino, because they're doing like little separate casinos outside the Iceberg Lounge, like little private ones around the city. And he finds the Penguin kids, right, the twins. And he comes in, and the daughter says, I've heard you've already, you were dying or something, Batman, right? And Batman says, I don't die, ask your father. And that's fine, if a bit mean. But the next part is, if you've got a Ouija board handy. And Batman wouldn't say that.
Yeah, it's so weird as well, because Zdarsky had such a great voice for Batman in the miniseries they did.
The Night.
On the name. The Night, thank you. I had such a great handle on him there, and then we were so excited for this run based on that.
Yeah, based on that, I'd say even more so based on his Daredevil, which had the right sort of dark tone that I was expecting.
I think a combination of we've seen he can do it on Daredevil, and then he proved he can write Bruce. We saw it in that mini, and then this is just miserable.
The sad thing is that we're back to the regular universe, so obviously I'm happy that's over, but it's left
now it has actual repercussions, though.
Yeah, like it's left all these things dangling, and like there's all these just elements of who the character is right now. That because I didn't like that story, and I never really bought into what he was going through in it, that I just don't like having to deal with any of it now. So, like, I'm not sure. And we've got Night Terrors to deal with, and then we've got that stupid crossover with Catwoman that's going to take up 2 months. I mean, like Batman's in a rough place right now for me. Like, I am so not excited about any of this.
I mean, like, I don't want to read Batman right now. Like, I just don't. I kind of feel like I have to because Batman.
Yeah.
But I don't want to. And knowing that I've got to get through Night Terrors and then that Catwoman crossover, where I feel like I'm going to be forced into reading the Catwoman book as well, otherwise I'm going to have no context.
Yeah, for 2 months. It's kind of weird that Batman is, like, so up on the echelon of like what constitutes the important books at DC that it feels like for us to actually to just not read it would take an astronomical amount of shit to get us to that point. I think.
Honestly, by the time you get into September, October, it might be starting to feel that way.
It may, but I feel like on some level I'll read this for the show just to talk about how shit it is at a certain point. And there's not a lot of books I'll do that with, right? Because I'll at the very least, I'll put it this way. Zdarsky's still relatively easy to read. It's not that much of a chore to get through this, even though I don't like any of it. Whereas a lot of books that I don't like because I think they're a pain to read. And if they're a pain to read, I just don't want to read them. This is a little bit different than that. So, anywho, yeah. So yeah, Bruce is hiding, like, you know, he's shut off his like suits, like, system, so Barbara can't see what his heart rate and stuff is and all that nonsense. He's being super secretive. He has this fight with Selina that he ends up finding out that Penguin's not actually dead. So, and it's just all a bit iffy. And I think what hurt that scene with Selena even more is that I knew we're building up to this crossover where she takes over the city, and it just made me like so not interested in what she's doing right now because I just don't like that direction. You know?
It's one of those things where I'm not opposed to that direction inherently.
No, I mean, no, I agree, but like, I mean, specifically in the sense that they've just announced, oh, we're doing this crossover in like a couple months, and she's going to be at this point. Like, if Ram V's Catwoman was building up and it got to that point naturally, I wouldn't have a problem with it, right? But I feel really sad that I'm this down on who Selena is right now because I was really into her stuff for a while.
Okay, to play slight devil's advocate, for all we know, the current Catwoman book might be building towards that in a natural way. We're just not reading it.
Okay, yeah, but that's a fair point. Yeah, I can't really argue with that.
Yeah, because us not liking the book and the style doesn't inherently mean that it's not pacing its own story beats correctly. Because I don't think that was... we only read one issue, but that was not something we could judge from that.
That is a fair point. But I suppose it's... I think if you were reading that story and assuming you like it and assuming it's doing the right beats, like you would probably feel that she feels right in this conversation. I think for me, she felt like, oh, Selena's kind of like angry now. Like she has this kind of vibe to her that's different from like the last few times she's interacted with Batman, even post all the near wedding stuff. It's had kind of like a sort of sweet scent. Like, you know, I don't even think it was that long ago in Detective that she popped up and helped save them for an issue, and it had kind of this like, okay, we didn't get married, but we still clearly love each other and we'll still be there for each other when the time, you know, calls for it. Whereas this felt more aggressive and more...
I mean, it was right off the bat where she was like, oh, you're coming to arrest me now?
Yeah. It was very...
Whereas I don't think even like a year ago, I don't think we'd have even been considering that was an option.
Yeah, very strange. So, and maybe you say, like you say, the Catwoman solo book has built her up to this, but it's not the Catwoman that we've seen relatively recently in other books, and I think, you know, that feels a bit jarring because of it. So they all come over. The Bat family all come over for some dinner, and he's all happy about it. But then he imagines the room burning on fire, because the sad part is that, and I said this a lot during this last arc, where like, conceptually there was like one or two good ideas at the center of it that I kind of liked. You know, like there was that moment early on in that arc where it was like, oh, this is a Gotham and it needs a Batman, so I'm going to be the goddamn Batman. I actually kind of liked that moment in and of itself.
Bruce finding his inspiration of just necessity.
Yeah. And I think the core thing here that I kind of like on paper is the idea that it's a story about him scared that he's going to lose the Bat family, and he's like worried about it. And he, like, in a kind of not even because there's actually a danger of it, but because he's in this bad place where he's like becoming insecure about them.
There's a really great kernel of an idea in that Bruce realizes he's getting old and he's getting slow. Like he underestimated the Cobblepot twin. He's like, this is why I don't think it was supposed to be that he's superpowered. I think it is Bruce is getting old. He's off his game, and he knows it, and that's why he's scared, because he doesn't like. He keeps saying in this issue, Batman has to be perfect. Batman is fine. Bruce can be broken, but Batman has to be great. And he knows he can't keep that up because he is getting too old.
And that's probably building to something, which is fine. Like, and that's an okay direction.
It's the sort of thing where I would hope, I don't think it is, but I would hope almost this story is building to Bruce's retiring almost.
Yeah, not that we seriously expect that to happen, but just that in theory that's what it should build to.
That's where it feels like the seeds that this is planting right now, that's the direction I feel like, in a year's time, give or take, we should be looking at Bruce being like, right, one of you, who's stepping up?
Which, it's almost a shame if it does go down that route, because that's a really big story to tell in Batman. That's a big milestone story that'll change things. It's a real shame if I'm like just miserable the entire way because I don't like how the story's actually been handled. And even more baffling is that it's by a writer who I thought could do a good job and isn't.
Ballsiest move would be Zdarsky to build up that entire story, set off as Batman's over, not Batman's over, but Bruce is retiring. He's hand off the cowl to whomever. and then you start a new issue 1 with a new writer, and it's new Batman, not Bruce. You stick with it, and then you go, hey, I set it up for you. Go wild.
Hey, I mean, I was on team Dick should still be Batman.
Me too.
When that happened, and
over a decade ago.
And I'd still be happy if Dick was still Batman, and we just kept going down that path. But
while I love Dick as Batman, I don't want Dick to be Batman again. I think maybe this is the time for Tim to take a shot at it. I think Tim's the most natural successor in many ways, and I think it would give Tim something to actually do with his recent identity crisis. I don't even mean, because like Tim's got a book right now. Quality aside, he has a book. He has something to do, objectively speaking, in terms of, there's a regular appearance of Tim, but he doesn't have a. He's for the last few years he's been going through an identity crisis. Is he Red Robin? Is he Robin? Who is he? What's his purpose in the Bat family? I think him stepping up and having to be Batman would be a really interesting thing to do with Tim right now.
Yeah, I think it's almost like the medium of comics itself has shot this in the foot a little bit, because I still think Dick would be the perfect choice, except for the fact that we've done it already. That's the only kind of caveat to it.
And the fact that he does not want to do it.
That's why he makes him perfect, though. Like, it's the reluctant part that makes it even more tantalizing.
Oh, see, I get that, but for me, him being his own thing is still more interesting. I think Tim doesn't have that role that he's ever grown into. They tried with Red Robin, it didn't stick. I think it's still reluctant because but not in the same way as Dick. It would be more of a, am I ready to do this? And even then, he'll be going the whole time where this is only temporary. I'm only Batman until Damian's ready to claim that mantle, and he has to. And over the course of the story of however long he's Batman, he has to earn. Not just to prove that he's Batman in general, but just for himself, that he deserves it as much as Damian will do one day.
It makes sense to go down that path. I'm not sure that's what we're building up to, though, with any of this.
Nor am I. That's kind of wishful thinking almost, but...
and the thing is, even if it builds up to exactly what either of us want or expect...
There's the point of, well,
it doesn't
we're not enjoying it right now.
Yeah, it still doesn't make these issues, issue to issue, any better. And,
no.
A lot of the fundamental problems are things like just the voice being off, or just the characters feeling off.
It's so weird because, like, parts of it are... The concepts are just not things we like right now. Like, all the stuff with the other universe, the hand, it's things in concept that we don't like. But there are things in concept we do like Batman going old, these things like that. But then there's the execution where some of it, I don't think there is a problem with the execution. Like I say, it's even though it's worse, it's an easy read. It's not overly dense. It's not like really hard to read. The voices are there. I'd say pretty still the most of the time. The voices are fine.
Most of the time, it sticks out when they're not, though.
Yeah, but you do have those moments where things aren't quite right. Things aren't clicking. And it's a weird thing where it's just not coming together in multiple places. It's on different levels where it's kind of fumbling.
And it's not really in this issue, but there's been kind of a problem that's grown over his first two arcs where Zdarsky leans into the because Batman a bit too much. Like, as much as it was a fun issue to look at and actually read, like, Batman surviving descending back through orbit on like a bit of metal was like, oh, this is the most ridiculous silly shit. Like,
yeah, and I thought Tynan was pretty egregious at because Batman and just throwing new gadgets at everything, but at least that was I could understand that was coming from a place of I want Batman to have fun with gadgets and cars and cool shit.
But at least I had gadgets that were there to do the things. This it feels like here he just
cooler gadgets than shark repellent.
I mean, at least I understand what the point of that was. That was like a reference.
Yeah, no, but that's the problem. It was too much of just, this is a reference. Hey,
oh yeah, it was tons of that. Oh yeah, like there was that moment where you hit the Batman 89 page, and then I was like, wait, what are we doing? And then it starts going through everything. It's like, oh, here's the animated series, here's Beyond, here's Dark Knight Returns, here's other famous, comic book stories and shit.
Yeah. I think to actively go against the point of things like Dark Knight Returns with the joke and just be like, hey, did you kill him? Like, as if it wasn't intentionally like a mystery for decades.
Ah, dear. Yeah.
I really hate that issue if you can't tell. I really, really like. That's one of the worst issues I've read in a long time, and I read some shite that patrons make me read.
Oh dear, yes. Honestly, it's funny because I think that we read that issue right around the same time I saw the clip from The Flash where Michael Keaton says "Let's get nuts," and it was like the perfect synchronizing of just like the same problem on both fronts. It was
just a complete misunderstanding of the point of why it's there and what's fun about it and what people actually like.
Yes,
and just hey, you recognize this?
It wasn't a goddamn catchphrase, okay? Anyway, the backup is Batman, basically just back in the days of like the creation of Failsafe and like Zu&R taking over and building Failsafe, and that's basically it. There's not really much to add, to be honest.
Some nice art.
Yeah.
Mike Corona. That's he was doing the Batgirls book, right?
Yeah. I like this art more than the main story.
I do as well.
Yeah. But it has that problem though, where I just sort of looked at it and went, "Oh, we're doing the creation of Failsafe." I'm kind of over this at this point.
I enjoyed the visual, just the fun kind of like, hey, it's a fight scene basically. It's Batman versus Failsafe in like a training fight to see how Failsafe's progressing. I enjoy it from a visual point of like, hey, this is some kind of fun action. Corona looks great. But I mean, the story is just like, whatever. It's like 7 or 8 pages of fluff again.
Yeah, I'm bored of fluff. You know that? I'm really, I'm getting really bored
I want some meat.
All right. Well, what are you rating Batman then?
I'm gonna give it a 4.5. I don't think it's terrible, but it's just below average of what I expect.
Yeah, I'll give it a straight 5. I think my logic is that it's a perfectly fine put together comic from a craft perspective, and that it's really easy to read and whatever. But I just don't like the story or conceptually what it's doing right now, and some the moments where the voices are off and some of the art I don't like. So yeah, I'll go 5. I don't want to go straight into like seething hatred territory because it's not.
Oh, I give the last issue a 1.5 on my own score. So just for some context.
I mean, I think that's maybe a little on the harsh side, but I did not like it either.
It made me angrier than any comic I've read in years. It deserved it.
Oh yeah, Batman's in a rough place right now.
Yeah.
Sorry to say. Luckily, I mean, Superman's kind of sketchy as well, but luckily, most of the other stuff I'm reading outside of those 2 books right now, pretty good. So,
yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else that is like really mediocre, but I'd say, I don't know, Green Arrow.
Well, that's more Williamson, I suppose. That goes hand in hand with Superman, but
that's true.
Fair enough. All right. Adventures of Superman, John Kent, issue 4, Tom Taylor writing with Darick Robertson on the art, which is a change, actually. It was Clayton Henry on the first.
It was, and this is a change for the worse for me. I'm not a big fan of Robertson stuff.
That's interesting, because it's a change for the better for me, because I don't like Clayton Henry that much.
Clayton Henry has one specific problem with the foreheads. That the elongated faces. He has very, very long faces on a lot of characters.
Mm-hmm.
But I tend to at least like his really clean lines. Robertson, it's just, it never quite works for me. Like, it's always just a little bit too...
Yeah, and I should specify, I'm not like super into this art either. It doesn't annoy me as much as Clayton Henry's foreheads does. So inherently, it's a bit better for me.
That's definitely still a Clayton Henry cover, right? Because John's got a forehead.
Oh yeah, massive forehead. So
I don't have to look. I just see the forehead.
So I know for a fact that you hadn't read any of this until today. So you've read the first 4 issues. Yeah. I am of the opinion that this is the best arc that Taylor's done for John Superman. I don't know if you feel similar.
Oh, it's not even close.
So you're agreeing with me?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
100%. Like I think his the previous John stuff we had was fine. Like it was always coming up against Nightwing. I think we were always like, I mean, yeah, but Nightwing's just so much better. Maybe this isn't bad. And I stand by that. It wasn't a bad book.
No. It was perfectly solid, but I think this arc has gotten to the meat of things, and the way it's using, the Injustice Superman and John being challenged by these other versions of his father, and this universe where his father did some bad. And I think this one, the last issue had that, because I loved the last issue. The last issue had those great moments where we talked about seeing the fear on the person's face and that told him everything he needed to know about who this Superman was on this Earth. And I think this issue is very interesting because he's kind of like struggling with like who do I side with here?
Because obviously I didn't read all the Bender stuff where John was away. I'm assuming all that stuff with Ultraman was in that book.
Yeah,
like him trapped in the volcano.
Yeah. Ultraman held him captive while he was in his teenage years on a different Earth. So,
I mean, I got it perfectly fine from context here, and I was like, I guess that was all in that Bendis book. So
it was nice that kind of came into it, but it's also fun to like mix Ultraman with Injustice Superman because it's like, okay, he's not as bad as Ultraman, but he's still bad.
he's not actively hunting out other Supermen, but he is kind of terrible on his own world.
Yeah, no, he's pretty awful.
And I kind of really like this setting of post Injustice where it seems like he's trying to be a kind of good guy. He's not as outright evil as he is at some point in the Injustice timeline, right?
From what I know, yeah, because I've never read the comics. I've watched through the first. I've watched both games actually. Now that I think about it, I've not played the second game myself, but
I've also watched the movie, the animated movie that they did.
Oh yeah, okay.
I think he comes across a lot more evil in some of those, whereas here, yes, he's a terrible fascist dictator, but it at least presents it as he thinks he's doing the right thing to some degree, right? He's a little bit more charismatic than I think I traditionally think of as Injustice Superman.
Yeah, they're almost going for something that's a little bit more Homelander here, and not in personality, obviously, but I mean, in that he's putting on a bit of a face that's the sort of the political friendly like version of who he is, but then the way other people talk about him being a tyrant, it makes me think a little bit of Homelander and the Boys, and like, he's putting
kind
on
of funny you mentioned that. I'm pretty sure Darick Robertson's the artist for the Boys.
Oh, is he? Oh, there you go. Fun stuff. And apparently Homelander's going to be in the new Mortal Kombat, so
yeah, there was a leak of that, wasn't there?
Yeah, it's him and Peacemaker was the other one that I remember. So I like that, the Lex of this universe goes to the Batman and his team and says, hey, this Ultraman dick from this other Earth was trying to kill Superman and he had a way to do it, so we have to like look into this. And then John shows up and gets all pissy about it, and Batman attacks. They have a bit of a fight. But what I liked about this is that once things do calm down, after John's like electric powers all flare up, is he yells out Babs' name, right? He says, Babs, stop. And she's like, wait, you know who I am? Like, because clearly, the supers and that don't know who Barbara Gordon actually is, like, as Batgirl on this Earth. And it's like, okay, and there's an Alfred here, and it's this thing where he's not quite ready to accept that his father on this Earth is necessarily the worst of the worst yet, even though he suspects it. But, he has this point where he's like, but this team has Alfred and Barbara Gordon, and that kind of tells me a lot.
Usually a winning side, yeah.
So even though obviously he has these mixed feelings on Batman, he calls him a judgmental dick in every universe or something to that effect. It kind of sets up some, and sure, obviously you would say Superman's obviously this great judge of character, so if he can be different here, then there's an argument that anyone could be. But, you get his logic. Okay, these two are on this side on this Earth, so maybe, and this all leads him to going to see this universe's Jay, because he wants a sort of outside the superhero opinion of everything that's going on, just like the man in the street, if you will. And sure enough, Jay tells him what's going on and paints a pretty clear picture that Superman killed Green Arrow, that he's been
Black Canary.
Yeah, he's a tyrant, all these things. And I've glossed over as well that there's a scene with Damian, because Damian works for Superman on this Earth and gets all accusatory. I did particularly enjoy when John does the sound effect and is like, that's what you do when you know someone else is right, but you don't want to agree with them.
Yeah. That noise, that sound effect is probably the most Damian thing. If you had to distill Damian into like one essence, it's that.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Like when there's those things where they want to show, like, reveal a character off panel, but they do it with a line of dialogue, and you see the line of dialogue, and you're like, is that who I think it is? Like, to get you excited first. That's all you have to do with Damian, and you know who it is.
Yeah, I think the end of this issue is that Damian shows up to Jay and threatens him and says, "What did you tell him? What was he talking about?" So that's kind of the threat that we leave off on. But
yeah, because Damian planted a tracker on John.
Yeah, so
which I thought immediately was like, oh god, he's going to lead him straight back to Batman and all the others, which he might still. I didn't expect him to follow him to Jay, which is a little bit more sinister, I think, because especially on this world where Jay's completely just a random civilian.
Yeah, I don't think he has his powers here.
It doesn't seem like it.
Yeah, I like this issue. I didn't think it was. I think the last issue is probably my favorite issue of the arc so far, because it had that great moment where he's like, this kid's scared of me, and like what that means. I thought the way it set it up with these conversations with this Superman, and it was so perfect the way it crescendoed to this realization, and it said so much so quickly because you just got it. Here it's a bit more than nitty gritty, and it's all solid stuff. I like him interacting with the other characters that he appreciates, but it's not quite as tight as last issue.
I think for me, this is probably the weakest issue of the 4. Again, not like it's still a good issue. Well, that'll become clear when I give it a score. I still like it a lot. I think for me, a combination of the art being, again, not bad, but less to my tastes. Let's be fair to say with that. Brings it down a little bit, and I just think they say it's not quite as tight. It definitely has more of a feeling of this is the next issue, as opposed to being this is the issue where this happens. It feels a little bit more transitionary in the arc.
Yeah, I mean, when you compare it to the previous like endings, like I think it was issue 1 or 2 ended with Ultraman get his neck snapped with Injustice Superman. Like that's like such a bold, like holy shit, like this is where we're going with this. Whereas this doesn't leave it off as like, obviously, yeah, it's going to put Damien against John, and that's going to be interesting. But it's,
I think you can't have that moment at the end of every issue because that would get old quick, and you run out of shock value. But yeah, this issue just feels like it's lacking a little bit of the spark almost that some of the other issues had. But not something that I'm concerned about going forward, but more just like I say, it feels like a transitional issue in that we're moving along to the next bit, and there'll be something exciting coming up.
Yeah, and it's issue 4, so it makes sense. We're at that point for the 6.
Yeah.
So, all right. What are you giving Adventures of Superman, John Kent, issue 4?
I'm going to give it a 7. I think it's pretty good still.
Yeah, I agree with a 7. I think, art's not amazing, and I don't think it's got those emotional high points that the last issue did, which I really loved. But it's a solid middle issue. So not really too much to complain about. All right, Shazam, issue 2, Mark Waid writing with Dan Mora on the art. So an interesting ending to issue 1 was Shazam going kind of off the rails and yelling at people and saying he's better to the press.
Do you know what's kind of funny? So I read these 2 issues back to back as well because turns out I've not been on this week of the show for a little while, so I had some catch up. There was a point during the issue where I'm like, Dan Mora's drawing Shazam really like Zachary Levi. I'm like, I'm not really feeling that right now because there's a lot of it on his face, and turns out he's kind of a dick. Especially if you've seen any of the stuff that he's kind of been doing on Twitter lately. Really unfortunate.
Who's the dick?
Zachary Levi.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant Dan Mora.
No, Dan Mora's lovely. I'm sure.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Just keeping track of who's the dick.
No, Levi. I'm like, okay. I'm not really feeling like, why do we have to base it on him so much? Because it very clearly is. And then I got to the end of that issue where he's kind of going off the rails nuts, and all of a sudden I'm like, do you know what?
It kind of fits.
I get it. I think it might have been an actual creative choice now, as opposed to just let's make it look like the actor that happens to be Shazam right now. Yeah,
and issue 1 set up a lot of interesting things where the gods like basically want to like take the powers back from Billy and want to discredit him effectively. So some interesting things set up in this book so far. And this one features him basically trying to figure out like what happened, like why did he say all these things. The other kids are asking him, why did you say these things? And he's like, I don't know, was it like mind control? He said, it didn't really feel like mind control, but and we get this interesting kind of thing later on in the issue where Psycho Pirate shows up, and like I think it's Freddy's like, hey, Psycho Pirate, that's why you said all those things.
His whole thing is.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, this is kind of a genius red herring. And I think it's not frustrating because we already know it's not him. Right? We already, as the audience, know.
If you see Psycho Pirate, of course you would think that.
Yeah, and I think it's also smart that by the end of the issue, it makes it clear to Billy that that's not what it was. That it wasn't him. that did this.
Yeah.
Because he's like, because he starts getting angry again and he wants to kill Psycho Pirate, but his mask's off and he's like, I don't have powers when the mask's not on, so it's not me. And he's
So
like,
that's a perfect example of what I was talking about, of where he looks like Zachary Levi when in this book. If you look at the panel, it's there's a guy on the train that's like, hey, stop, you'll kill him. And he goes, so? And then underneath, there's the light bulb switching as he realizes what he's saying. And it's like a close-up on the eyes. And it's like very, very, very obvious in that panel. Like just in that shot there of who the reference is. And I think it's just such a... It went from a choice I was so not happy about to a great one. And doing it, especially is it being so... obvious in these moments where it is these really heightened emotions, because it's really like it's quite dark out of nowhere almost. Like it just turns.
oh yeah,
and there is that light bulb moment.
it's proper evil. I will say that I still think his face is chunky enough, you know, in the classic Captain Marvel way, that I don't necessarily see that much Zachary Levi. I can kind of see what you're saying, but I don't think it's like just completely.
It's not all the time. Like I say, I didn't notice it in every panel, but like that one there was a few panels in the first issue specifically that I really noticed it, especially when he's being in a side-on view.
There's a lot of good art in this issue, though. I especially like the page where Psycho Pirate thinks he's got away in the train, the subway, and then there's like the page of like Shazam catching or stopping the train. Like I think that page is fantastic. You feel the momentum, the pacing. Like he really knows how to do the action scenes, and I think Waid's sensibilities are so good for cheesier comic book ideas, where he really sort of loves being in that sort of side of things, and he makes them work. And I think that's why maybe Shazam is like the perfect character for him to tackle.
And then obviously you throw Mora on it. I don't know how this man keeps up a monthly schedule.
I honestly, yeah, it's pretty wonderful. And you know, we're talking about the big beats of the issue. We've left out the dinosaur lawyer
in the suit that is amazing.
Yeah, he shows up and basically says that Shazam's getting sued because he didn't have the appropriate paperwork filled out to send the other dinosaurs back to their home planet.
It's a T-Rex with a monocle. What more can he ask for?
It's pretty delightful. Yeah, it's great. And then the other big plot beat of the issue is that Freddy goes to the Rock of Eternity to try and figure things out or spy or whatever, and he ends up overhearing all the gods talking about Billy, and gets nabbed. This is actually titled the epilogue, or epilogue 1, I should say. There's 2 epilogues. Yes. So that's kind of a big cliffhanger, is that he gets caught listening to them. So I like that. I really liked that there was one point in the issue where Billy says he wished he had the X-ray vision of, and then he paused and he's like, some god with really good eyesight. And I thought that was quite funny.
Yeah.
So you know, it's making me laugh. You got fun stuff like the dinosaur. I didn't expect any dinosaur aliens to come back, and I certainly didn't expect it to be with a monocle. And
it was such a little fluffy opening to a Shazam book. I was like, okay, this is a kind of a nice little, heartwarming little intro.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was.
Actually bring it back, and it is being this recurring comedy gag now.
Yeah, I'm so into it. Because it's not a million miles away from the lizards and stuff like that Shazam sometimes deals with.
No, obviously we have a tiger living with them.
Of course,
it's already in the realms of, hey, we deal with some weird stuff anyway. Yeah,
all the stuff with Shazam chasing Psycho Pirate though, and the train stuff, all of that looks so gorgeous, and the momentum of it,
it's that page where he stops the train. Do you know what I think is so good about it? It's the angles. So the train is clearly he's stopping at an angle. It's going up slightly. It's lifted at a not quite 45 degree, maybe a 30 degree angle. But the panel at the top where you see the inside is still perfectly level across the page. So you have people falling across, and you're seeing the train at the angle. So it really gives you that weird perspective, and it makes it feel that you feel the motion and the angle of it even more.
Yeah, and on top of that, I mean, the panel's straight across at the top, but the actual angle, it's like a Dutch angle inside the panel, even though the panel's straight. So it feels like even more of a turn when you actually see the bigger panel underneath it.
Yeah, it's so impressive in terms of just the combination of the layouts and the perspective work.
Yeah, it's really simple. Also, I mean, it's been a while since I've seen Psycho Pirate just be a guy who does criminal stuff. but the idea that he wants to steal the Mona Lisa because it's like to do with like feelings and expressions, I thought was a little funny.
Perfect. Yeah.
So
I'm down to see more low-key Psycho Pirate stuff. It kind of feels like every time you see him, it's like, oh, here we go, end of the world.
Well, it's very heavy, yeah. But I loved his stuff in the detective comic story, The Tower. I thought that was
but that was again, it was a bit different where he was being used.
Yeah.
This here, like when he's running away, like to get away onto the subway, and he's just making them feel all the different things, and it's not like as heavy as before. But I really like the lettering touch of using the red highlight for whenever it's an emotion that he's inflaming. It's like interest, bored, no interest,
see,
afraid.
When he's running through the crowd in the train station section and he's just telling them all to like hate Shazam or whatever he says, and you all just see their eyes like turning red and looking at him, it reminded me of all things, I was thinking a little bit of the first season of Jessica Jones with Kilgrave and how he would just make people do things, and it would feel really scary that he'd just make people do anything. And I was like, you know what, you could totally do a Kilgrave style plot with Psycho Pirate at some point and really nail it. Yeah,
I think that'd be interesting because, like I say, I'm down to recontextualize Psycho Pirate into still being scary. I'm not saying make him a joke, but bring him back down to earth where it's not like, okay, every time we see him, we're terrified of crisis level events anymore.
Yeah, because I don't think he's ever felt silly, but there's always kind of a darkness to him, which I think he can still keep. But yeah, there's maybe more variety to use him for than just worlds will live, worlds will die. So on, so on. And there's a little one-page second epilogue at the end, which is a little tease for it's just Mary coming home and trying to play a video game. And I noticed, I don't want to go too much out of this, but I love how when they make fake controllers here, their thing here to just make it clear that this is not copyright infringement or whatever. Is
buttons on the wrong sides?
Yeah, they've put the D-pad on the right, and it just felt weird. I was like, what is this? Some sort of like Mirror Master universe? Like
it's so wrong, and I hate it. But I understand it, but I hate it.
Yeah, it's so weird. I get that it's a really simple thing to, and the funny thing is though, as time goes on, they are like, you can tell this is definitely like them adjusting like a PS5 controller because it's even got the area where the touchpad would go.
It's definitely a DualShock, yeah.
Yeah, so you can definitely feel like but they've specifically made the buttons more Nintendo looking, just so that there's again it's mixing things up
with the like the ovals around the buttons to split them into the two groups.
Yeah. But the overall shape definitely looks more DualShock or DualSense, I should say, these days. But anyway, she falls asleep while she's trying to play a game, and it just says, this is the little tease for like night terrors, is that she's going to have a nightmare.
Which I'm sure I'm not down inherently on this specific night terror. It's just. I don't want to be reminded that it's a thing.
No, I know. But like Mary was so great in that mini, and I think Wade's still writing this one, so like I have no reason to be down about this one specifically.
It's fair. Something else I was noticing. I say I noticed on this last page. It's earlier in the book as well, but it reminded me here. The inclusion of thought bubbles. It's such a, again, kind of an old school comic technique now. Like it's not something you see very often. It's usually now you only see it in terms of like intentional, like referencing like Silver Age things, stuff like that, because we moved to caption boxes. I like this book that it just does it very naturally. It still feels like it's an old school comic in that sense. That's kind of the vibe Waid's been going for. It's a very classic feeling book. As a lot of Waid's things tend to be, let's be fair. But it doesn't feel like it's done like in a cheesy referencing kind of way. It's just this is the aesthetic of the book, and it feels really natural.
Yeah, this is like I've loved his World's Finest pretty much, and I've enjoyed some of the other little things that he's done here or there since he came back to DC. But this kind of feels like the match made in heaven for like what he should be doing, and it's only 2 issues so far, but it feels like this is exactly the sort of quality I was expecting, and he's doing things that I couldn't have predicted, which is making it as fun as it is.
I think what I like more about this book than World's Finest, and again, I don't think World's Finest is a bad book. I'm enjoying it for the most part. I've been up and down it a little bit compared to you, but overall, good book. I think what I like more about him on Shazam is it's a more natural fit for his tone with that kind of that Silver Agey vibe that he likes, without not necessarily the feeling in terms of how dense or anything like that, but just the tone and that he has. And he can do that with Shazam because it matches that character really naturally, and have it set present day DCU. It doesn't have to be like this. Like his World's Finest book is this. Oh, it's this throwback book that's set sometime some years ago. Just don't think about it too hard. It'll all line up. Don't worry about it.
There's definitely other things I could see him working with though. I think he would be a killer person to put on a new Terrifics book. Like I think him with Terrifics would work really well.
It's again, that's the same sort of thing where it's like it's kind of just a Fantastic Four, kind of like cheesy family vibe.
Yeah, but I think that's why it would work. Is that it gets away with being that slightly lighter tone, or even be a young Teen Titans team, like not maybe your Titans, but your like more Young Justice age type characters, which you kind of did with Impulse, I suppose, back in the day. But
yeah,
I could see it working. You know, but yeah, I hope it goes as long as it can.
I think he has a nice fit for characters that are inherently a little bit more lighthearted.
Yeah, but without sacrificing weight for them, because he's very good at writing the weight for them.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, this doesn't feel like it's just, again, to our word of the moment. This is not fluff.
Yeah, and obviously he's good at, like, cause, I mean, he wrote Birthright, which is obviously a celebrated Superman story.
Of course, this is not to say he doesn't have range and can't do other things. I just think this is where he excels.
Yeah, no, it's very, very good. What are you rating Shazam issue 2?
I'm gonna give it an 8.5. Yeah, we'll go with the 0.5.
I'll give it the 9. I'm, you know, this was my happy time of the week.
Well, I mean, you do you.
A great time with Shazam. So there you go. Steelworks issue 1, written by Michael Dorn, Worf from Star Trek, and art by Sami Basri. So yeah, this obviously was announced a while ago and CD'd in like the I think Action 1050 or whatever had like a little short that was kind of leading into it. But yeah, it's basically finally that tower that they were building, the Steelworks tower, has actually been fixed up since it got destroyed, and Steele's making his big grand speech, and the supers are all there to usher in this like new era. But obviously, because this is Steele's book now, it starts to expand to more of his life. So we see Lana watching on the TV, and we have a scene with her later where, you know, they seem to be engaged based on the ring.
That's usually what that means, yeah.
On the finger. And I thought it did some interesting world building where it showed you like some of these areas of Metropolis that are empty. Like, you know, there's like a park there's no kids in the swings and things like that. It's kind of making a point of saying, hey, like, not all of the city's great right now, and that's kind of what Steele's setting out to try and fix. He wants to make it better and safer in different ways. But the big thing that he's going for, though, is to set up infrastructure, and it sounds like he's literally installing shields on buildings so that when big things happen, the buildings don't get knocked down, which,
sensible,
given Metropolis, makes a lot of sense. But he's also building up to the idea that he wants to maybe suggest that the supers don't get involved as much or something. Like, you know, he certainly is suggesting that him and Nat don't steal up anymore. Because, well, like, he doesn't regret doing any of that. The idea is that, but that's only like a fix in the moment as opposed to actually fixing something from the ground up where you're removing all the potential for all the danger and things like that. Of course, I would throw in, yeah, but a lot of your threats come from like space that you have no control over. So
yeah, those are not great.
Yeah, worth keeping that in mind, I'd say, Steele. But yeah, I mean, before we get to the villain side of things, like I think this was decent enough. I think it set the tone for what he's trying to do. It tying all the characters together by showing them all listen to his speech on TV, I think, was a nice way of like connecting it all, making it all feel like part of one world. It's a tried and true method. Even the villain that's getting introduced is listening to it early on. So I think the craft as a comic is solid enough.
This is where I disagree. I think conceptually, nice ideas. I like what it's doing. In terms of the craft, I couldn't finish the issue. I got about 2/3 through, and it was just so much dialogue, so much text, and walls of it. Like, I got to, it was just after, it was basically the end of the scene. It's after he's talking with Natasha. There's a scene after that. I got to about there. I think it was with Lana.
Sure.
It was just pages and pages where I just felt like so much dialogue, like, and every speech bubble was huge. And I was like, I can't read it anymore.
I don't think it's that bad. I mean, I was skimming through the pages, and yeah, there's maybe one or two pages. Like,
I get I get false insecurity. There's a few pages in a row where I'm like, this isn't so bad, and then I get a page which is just wall of text, and that happened like 3 or 4 times. And I just kind of got sick of it.
There's that 2-page spread page where he's talking to Natasha, where there's a lot of bubbles, and I can sort of agree with that page.
But it's not even necessarily just the amount of bubbles; it's the size of them as well. Like even early on when I think while I was watching the TV, there's a lot of, like, dense bubbles on that one. Obviously, there is that 2-page spread that is huge. It's the one he's with Lana just after that scene. It's this is the one that tapped me out. Or it's that middle third panel where it's just all just like there's like 6 bubbles and all of them are quite big bubbles. And I was just like, oh, this is so much dialogue.
I don't think it's that bad. I think it's infrequent enough that it didn't really stick out too much to me.
It was a lot for me reading. Maybe it was a combination of reading this alongside a lot of other issues at the same time to catch up with everything. But it felt like I was reading a lot in this issue, and it felt like it was really slow going.
It's the sort of thing where if the whole issue's like that, I can see, like, I can have a problem with that. But because it is only 3 or 4 pages out of the whole book, and there's a lot of there's a lot of pages where it is mostly quiet, where it's like the villain that's being introduced is walking around, and there's not really a lot of being said on those pages or whatever until he meets some other villain that's going to do some experiment on him to turn him into a supervillain, which seems to be what's happening at the end. Basically, the villain's like, he's going to give out all this free energy to the city, but that doesn't really work for all the energy companies, so we have to take care of Steel, and that seems to be the motivation. I will say there was one little weird moment at the end from a comic sort of craft point of view. Is so the henchman for the bad guy in the red suit, who's like sort of recruiting this drunk who's like mad that he's lost his family, and blames Steel on some level because when Steel like quit his job during Death of Superman, it had a roll-on effect that ended up everyone losing their jobs. I just assumed he was racist at first, to be honest, until they explained it more. But I mean, they give us some backstory. Yeah, he probably is a bit racist too, to be fair. But there's a moment where the henchman like throws him into like a room, and then the very next panel is this villain with the long hair, the drunk guy, walking back out the room butt naked, and like he's obviously censored with the speech bubble. But like I'm guessing there was a time jump there where like he would get we went into the room and some stuff happened, and he came back out, but the pacing didn't make it feel that way, so it read really clunky to me. You never got to this page.
I'm skimming. Because it turns out there's like 5 or 6 pages is kind of after where I got to, so I'm kind of just skimming it now to see where there's still a lot of dialogue. I see the bit you're on about though, because he throws him in the door, and he comes out. What the F did you do to me? It definitely. I don't know if there was meant to be a time jump or if something happened in that room that maybe there was time passed for him but not for us.
I feel like you have to show him like crashing through the door to at least, because it looks like he's going towards a closed door in that first panel,
and then he comes out.
Yeah, so it feels really clunky, and I'm not really sure what the sequence of events is here. I don't know. It's one of those things where I would never even think about this until I see it done like this, where it's wrong, and I know I'm questioning like
what actually happened here.
Yeah. So it's kind of weird, and if it's meant to be like they went into a room, they did something mysterious we're not meant to know about yet, I still don't get the feeling that they've teased that properly. So
no, like I said, my best assumption is the time has passed for him somehow, like this, like, I don't know, alternate dimension, little pocket dimension or something, and he comes back out, but time hasn't passed for us or the characters outside, like the the villain in the red suit.
Yeah, I think the ending.
I'm not sure on that.
The ending's probably the biggest negative I have for the book, is between that like weird kerfuffle and just the last couple pages, which is this guy seemingly showing up at Steelworks and the alarm going off. Like the cliffhangers, like Natasha in her suit on the ground floor just being like, okay, let's take care of this threat, and it's just like to be continued. I thought it felt like a really weak cliffhanger, because I thought up until that point, I thought building this guy who's angry and drunk, has some kind of vendetta against John Henry, and then this like rich guy in a red suit recruits him. I'm like, okay, you're building up what feels like a new villain. I mean, maybe this is taken from somewhere, but it's doing a good job at least of like establishing someone who feels new to me. And then Steele's speech being this like sort of connective tissue that links everyone else together early on, and then setting up his relationship with Lana. I thought all that stuff was solid. It's given him a supporting cast, which is nice to have, because Steele's usually a supporting character. It was nice to have a supporting cast for him. And Lana's a character I like as well, so it's a shame that we don't get to see her that much these days. So,
yeah,
like, you know, I was enjoying all those beats. I think the art's just kind of typical OK House style, you know?
Yeah, Basri's seen their work be better, I feel like. But then I think a lot of the times that I've seen the work, it's been in backups or anthologies. It's been like over like 10 pages.
Basri feels like he would be the next replacement on Adventures of Superman John Kent, and it'd be a slight upgrade to the ones that have been on that already, but not like a huge upgrade.
Definitely fits that style though.
Yeah. You know, it's very clean, a bit flat in places.
There's again a problem I found with a lot of current house style artists at DC, a weird separation of layers between our characters and the backgrounds. It feels like they're not in a real place. Like it feels like there's like an extra like layer around them. It doesn't feel like they're actually in the scene. They're just kind of pasted on top. It's particularly bad on that double page, because if you look around Steel, there's like a white outline around him, and I know there's no actual background there, but it makes it feel even more unnatural because he's still casting a shadow. They're still, in theory, they're still in a room. There's still a light source. But that white background and like that white light, and it's not just around like the front, like that's where the light's hitting him because that's the direction of the shadow. It's around the back on the cape as well. It just adds to this separation effect.
I think that page is a weird one to bring this up in just because it's kind of like...
It is, but it's not the only one I see. On the very next page from that.
No, I agree, but I'm just saying that because that page is like this sort of conceptual thing where basically the background's a bunch of flashbacks, it's like, well, it's not really there, so they should feel separate in that occasion. But there are other pages where like the guy with the red suit's talking to the long-haired drunk, and like their backgrounds feel like they're a different layer in Photoshop, and they feel like they've got like a blurry effect on it to make it look out of focus. Like it just kind of feels like, yeah, this feels like two different bits of art or something. I mean, that
like
slapped together.
Even just like the very next page after that double, there's the second panel down is he's laughing. Around the top of his head, it's blue around the there's like a blue outline as if it's still the window behind him, even though that part of his head is against the ceiling, so there shouldn't be that weird outline of light there. Like if it's the same around Natasha as well. Like it's the exact same outline all the way around, and it's really jarring. As if the window's just continuing around their head, and you can just see the sky outside for like a little like millimeter, and it just gives this false separation. It's
like a glitch in a video game where you get light bleed. Like it's not meant to be there, but it shows up anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll admit that doesn't stick out to me too much. I agree it's a flaw, but it's not one that jumps out to my eye quite as much.
It's because it's so consistent in this issue. It really bothers me.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. I think for me the storytelling got murky towards the end between the confusion of like what happens to this guy and then just kind of the weak cliffhanger. It was definitely the weakest section of the book for me. Whereas otherwise, I thought it did an okay job of like establishing, okay, this is what the book is. It definitely feels like one of those minis though that it's like, you know, there's going to be a very small audience that actually reads all this. It's going to, you know, not set the world on fire.
Was this not announced as an ongoing?
I don't think so.
I don't, because it doesn't say one of anything on the front.
I mean, maybe it's maybe, but there's a lot of books that could come out recently that could be either or, that just depending on sales either become one or don't.
It's usually the other way around though. They usually announce it as a mini and then it gets extended.
Well, usually, but there's been a few other examples that are kind of murky recently in solicits.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this is not like surreal at this point, given the last few months. Yeah, I mean, Green Arrow was another one that was meant to be a mini, and then it's kind of maybe an ongoing now. But
right, okay. So the original solicit did have it as 1 of 6, but it does not say 1 of 6 on the cover. So unless it's been extended, that I don't know about.
This is not the only time though that they've not put 1 of whatever on the cover though for a mini.
It's not, but they have been doing it the last couple of years pretty consistently.
Yeah, but what I'm saying though, the last few months have been more murky, where they've been getting a little bit more wishy-washy with this. So I don't think any of this is concrete one way or the other. So I don't know, but I think it's an alright first issue. It's not setting your world on fire. I think if you like the character John Henry, or even just some of the other extended characters from the Superman mythos, like Lana and Natasha, then you might get something a little bit out of it. But it's hard to recommend as a book to read on Infinite and a month later. It seems like, yeah, why not give it a try? As a book to pick up and actually like pay for the new issues, it feels like a tougher sell to me.
Yeah, and I definitely feel the like kind of the stunt casting, right, with Dorn here. Like it's like, hey, we got him, he's voiced the character. It doesn't feel like, I feel like he maybe needed some more help with actually writing comics as opposed to just like, I'm sure like if all the ideas are his, like some really good ideas and concepts. I just don't think the execution's there. I think maybe he needed a co-writer.
That's probably where some of those worded panels or bubbles come from.
Yeah, it's probably something that he can see himself like saying these monologues, like, and giving them, and it being a compelling performance. Like he's, maybe he's reading these out back to himself as like, acting them out, because that's how he does things. But I don't think it reads that well.
Yeah. Okay. All right. What are you giving Steelworks issue 1?
I'm gonna give it like a 4 in that. I don't think it's not terrible. I couldn't finish it because of the dialogue, but it's not terrible conceptually. It's not the worst thing ever. But I don't really like it very much.
Yeah, I think that's about. I think I'm at like a 6.5. I'd say. I think there's some good ideas. I think that it mostly reads well enough, up until I think it falls apart a little bit in the last few pages, effectively. So. Yeah. Well, I'll see. I mean, I think there's a good chance I'll read issue 2, and I'll see if how it holds up. It's the sort of thing, though. I feel like a lot of these minis tend to have an okay issue 1, and then all of the problems multiply
compound
when you get to issue 2. So I'll be curious to see if that happens with this one. But assuming it's a similar size week next month. In fact, next month will be Night Terrors. So I mean, I don't even know how busy the week will be.
You might have about 1,000 Night Terrors books.
So we'll see how that goes. But I'd say it's okay. It's okay. Some nice ideas. That still works. All right. Dark Knights of Steel, issue 11. Tom Taylor and Yasmine Putri on the art. This is, Clark and Bruce bonding. This is the Bruce of this world finally kind of saying, hey, maybe all these metas that I've locked up in the jail cells shouldn't be down here. Although it did lead to a good little laugh where I think it's Harley who jumps in and says, yes, but the actual criminals who have murdered people will not be getting released. And then you just see Calendar Man be like, ah.
Yeah.
I thought that was quite funny. But
it is.
I think, Joe, I liked about this issue. My favorite thing about this issue, and it's probably one of my favorite things about this entire book, which I've been a little bit more lukewarm
I'm really
on.
intrigued to see what you're going to say now, because I have no idea where you're going.
Right?
Unless, can I make one guess?
Make a
one
guess.
word. Alfred.
No.
Oh, okay. I thought that was. I thought maybe you were going with that stuff.
Which is fine. Don't get me wrong, but we've pulled on the Alfred strings a lot in various different ways recently, so it's not.
I mean, Tom Taylor's done it a lot. Let's be honest.
Yeah, and it means more Nightwing though, because it's the actual Alfred as opposed to.
Yeah, I mean, he even did it in the first Deceased book quite a bit.
So. No, my favorite thing about this, and this is sort of a standalone thing, separate from the overall story or continuity that I really like, is just a storytelling thing. I love rules, I love mechanics, and I love trying to think about how to use those rules.
You do, yeah.
The characters in this issue, they know that the White Martians can't handle fire, so the entire defense is based around, okay, how can we use that? So they build a moat of fire. They get a lot of wood and burn it, so they've got fire surrounding the castle at all times. It felt like, to me, that part of a movie where the characters are using their brains and they're like, okay, this is their one weakness, and this is what we can do to keep them away. But of course, there's always that threat of, can we keep all this burning forever? Probably not.
I love this concept in that it's one, like you say, it's physically impossible to sustain it forever.
Yes.
And 2, it doesn't solve the problem. It buys them time.
Yes, it buys them, I guess the best I can compare it to is in Aliens, where they get the turrets up and they've got that little safe area for the middle chunk of the movie. It buys them time to think. It buys them time to, okay, what do we do when the threat really gets here? but I don't know. I love this type of thing. I love using mechanics and mechanics you've set up. So this for
it's
me,
using mechanics that we're familiar with because Martians.
Yeah.
Not exclusive to this book, but then using it in a specific way that is suitable for this setting.
Yeah, and I think, I've been up and down a little bit in the book because, the premise doesn't sing to me quite as much, but this part of it, like, works regardless of, like, what the setting is. It's just about, okay, the characters have been faced with this problem, here's how they can tackle it, and I don't know, I was enjoying this in the way that I would enjoy a story like that in a movie in this issue, in a way that, most of the book, and this goes for a lot of comics sometimes, especially when Tom Taylor is, like, juggling all these, like, cool different takes on, like, this grand mythology with 100 different characters, but a lot of the time it can feel like throughout this and throughout the Sea Stephen, where you've got, oh, this is how he's remixing this character, or this is how he's remixing this idea. This felt like this wasn't about remixing anything. This was just using the things that have been established to tell a compelling part of the story. And I really enjoyed that. I felt like I wasn't just like, oh, we're revealing who this person really is this issue.
It wasn't a new take on something like that. It was new take in the sense of, okay, it's setting appropriate by using, a moat and, just burning wood, right? As opposed to anything high tech. But it's very much just fire, right? That's always been the one thing.
Also, Lara forging a Phantom Zone projector, I thought was kind of funny.
Yeah, it was a little bit different.
I got a kick out of that. Because I'm like, what's she building? She's welding something. What's she building?
A weapon. I'm like, oh, okay.
This is like, oh, this will send them to a prison. And I'm like, oh, it's a Phantom Zone projector. Very nice, very nice. So, yeah, no, and obviously the twist that Amanda Waller was working with the White Martians all along, like, is the most unsurprising.
It's peak Waller.
And I don't mean that in a complaining way. Like, it's natural that she has been doing this because she wants. It's like she's made a deal for the L's to still rule because she wants her side to, like, win, and she's going to do it at any cost. And she doesn't know how to deal with the fact that now the L's are like, no, we're going to work with the Amazons, and we're going to work with the Mages, or whatever they're calling the Black Lightning.
This is not even like a different take or like revealing. This is just Waller doing Waller things. Waller is the same in every time period in every universe. Yeah,
it just happens to be instead of the US, she's working for the L royal family.
Yeah.
So,
but ultimately, somehow, it's all about her own goals, because it always is.
Naturally, yes. So, yeah, I actually quite like this issue. It's probably one of my favorites of the whole thing because of that. Just because I really enjoyed the mechanics of them dealing with the story in it. And it sets up as well the White Martians have got this big meteor or kryptonite that they're going to use to hopefully kill the Kryptonians. So, and
then you've got a really nice heart-to-heart with Bruce and Alfred. Obviously, is now, we know as Marsh Manhunter, and he's like, hey, he's the Green Man. But ultimately, he comes to, well, hey, it doesn't matter. You were still Alfred all those years.
Yeah.
That bond's still there, and Manhunter didn't expect that. Like he was expecting, hey, you're gonna hate me. I get it.
Yeah. Also,
it's the same with Clark at the start as well. I mean, like, hey, now we actually are brothers. It's fine. Like, there's a lot of the normal expectation of just everyone being angry and upset at each other is kind of subverted.
Yeah, and another thing that's very Amanda Waller is that when she goes to meet the White Martians at the end and one comes up kind of threatening to her, she has effectively what's her version of the bomb in the neck in this timeline, where she sort of sets him on fire with like a defense mechanism, and he just burns, and he basically dusts like a vampire out of the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Damn
it. But it's kind of like that, though.
It kind of is, but I hate you still.
So yeah, more bonus points for it.
Yeah, sure. Bonus points.
Yeah, we got Zala. She can be the Vampire Slayer.
Oh God,
Zala the Vampire Slayer.
Look, there's already a book like this, and it's something's killing the children.
I need to read that. I do, but
you really do. Yeah.
Yeah. So. Oh, I like mechanics. I like rules. I like setting up the weakness for your monster, and then the heroes using that in a strategic way. I like strategy. Damn it.
I like in this world of works. Obviously, you're less keen in general on magic, and what Wall has done here is essentially just magic, deal with the devil. But it's still just all about, it's fire, right? It's like, you hurt me, you get fire.
Yeah.
And it's still all right, it's maybe a little hand wavy as, I made a deal. But, I mean, is it any more hand wavy? Just, you got a bomb in your neck, deal with it.
Yeah, no, it feels thematically similar enough that it makes sense for Waller to be using it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So no, and obviously Putri's art
continues to be great.
Yeah, Putri's art's obviously very solid, very detailed art, I would say.
Yep, that's why this book has been so inconsistent, I assume, in its release schedule.
It's been wildly inconsistent. That should have finished like 8 months ago.
As much as it's definitely hurt the pace of the book month to month, I still do think it was the right choice long term, because this is going to make a very nice hardcover.
Oh yeah, I mean, I get it, but it's that thing where there was a period in the middle there where I was like every time we got a new issue, I was like, what the hell even happened the last time? Because it's been like 3 months, you know?
It's not been as bad the last couple of issues.
Yeah. Anyway, what are you rating Dark Knights of Steel issue 11?
I'm going to give it an 8. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'll agree with the 8, I think, on this. It was good stuff. So there you go. I could have done a Patreon book this week, but I left it till next week because next week I only have like 3 books, so it just made more sense to wait till then.
That's good to know. I could have done one this week, but I had 5 issues of Batman, 4 issues of Superman, 2 issues of Shazam.
Yes. You had catching up on top of all the regular issues. So I'll be back with Batman and the Outsiders next week. If you're looking.
Is that what you're doing now?
Yeah, that replaced Animal Man.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I'll be doing the next issue of that next week. If anything, what I actually did was I did American Vampire a week early because there was a week 5. So, it works out all the same anyway. But that is the books. That'll take us out of the part of the show where we pick our favourite stuff of the week, favourite panel / moment, favourite cover, and, best art, top 5 books. So, do you have a panel / moment of the week, Connor?
I think I'm just gonna go with the T-Rex at the door in Shazam. just the page turn into the full page spread of just there's a T-Rex in a monocle and a top hat saying good afternoon.
I think that's understandable. I think my immediate thing to go to is him stopping the train. I think that page is just wonderful.
Also great, yeah.
That said, there's a lot of good pages in some of the Flash stories, but I think that's what I'll pick though. So very good. Cover of the week. You got something for
that? It's tough. There's a lot of good ones. I'm just glancing at some of the Shazam ones because I hadn't looked at those yet. But
there is a Dell'Otto Batman variant with the lightning behind him that is pretty stunning looking.
I like it when it was. I can see the small thumbnail. Once I saw it like a little bit bigger, I'm not really big on his. I don't know, the actual Batman proportions. Just the hunch doesn't quite work for me. I do really like the art germ Tim though.
I think the art germ one, like, I don't know if he's like art germ smoothness works for Batman's head as much, but I mean that's just maybe a taste thing. What else?
Art germ did the Tim cover though.
There's an art germ cover where Batman and Tim are both there. Oh, sorry, it's Cedric, not art germ. Sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Cedric.
I
was thinking Cedric. You're right.
Yeah, I do like the Argent one. I think I'm gonna go with the Michael Cho cover for Flash though. Shout out to the Sami cover for Shazam. Obviously, reunite him with Waid, even if it's just for a cover, is nice.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the Cho cover for Flash. We got the multiple Flashes. You got Jay there, and just in Cho's typical bold block colors. Looks great.
Yeah. I think I kind of like the Javier Rodriguez one, except Flash's face. I don't like that his face is like this, like just bright white flat colors. But I think the suit and the running motion looks great.
Yeah, it's very very flat colors.
Yeah, I think the rest of it looks great, other than his bottom half of his face, basically. But yeah. Honestly, though, I think I just have to go with either Mora's regular cover for Shazam, but I also kind of like the Steve Lieber one, to be honest, where
the pirate one.
He's a pirate and the T-Rex is in the background of the pirate hat as well.
That's also very fun.
Yeah, I'm kind of into that. So yeah, but I did quite like the Batman cover though as well. The one you didn't like, Delato.
The Delato one, yeah.
Well, yeah. So very good. All right, best art of the week.
Oh, it's tough. It comes down to Mora or Putri, really. Let's be honest. Both are great. I think I am going to give it to Mora just slightly, but I mean, there's not much in it.
I'm going to give it to Mora. I am going to shout out the artist for the Cy Spurrier Flash story, though. I did really like that, and I'm excited to see more of that.
The Deodato one.
Yeah, but Mora obviously did a full issue. We talked about it pretty in depth because it was fantastic, so it's kind of hard not to pick that. So there you go. All right, top 5 or as many as you read.
Yeah, pretty sure Shazam's at the top. Yeah, Shazam, then Dark Knights of Steel, Adventure Superman, still good, and then I guess Batman, but Batman's kind of disappointing.
Yeah, I'll go Shazam at number 1. Number 2 will probably Flash 800. Number 3, Dark Knights of Steel. Number 4, Adventures of Superman, John Kent, and then number 5, Steelworks. Hey, Batman's not even on my top 5. I read 6 books.
Hey, Matt, I'll be so proud of you.
I mean, maybe it made the top 5 last month just because there was less books. I don't know. I can't remember. But if there was more than 5 books, I guarantee you it didn't make the top 5 then either.
If it made the top 5 last month, then I have words for you.
Like I say, it may have just been less than 5 books. I can't change the laws of numbers.
Of course you can. You made up the rule of top 5.
Based on actual numbers.
Just make it a top 3. Make it a top 4 if you have to, just to not include it.
Based on maths. That's what's important here. Anyway, that's our picks for this week of DC Comics. I will now tell you what's coming next week from DC Comics. We have Green Lantern issue 2. We have Superman Lost issue 4. We got Batman Incorporated issue 9. Spirit World issue 2. Wildcats issue 8, Multiversity Harley Screws Up the DCU issue 4, Sandman Universe Nightmare Country The Glass House issue 3, Waller vs. Wildstorm issue 2, DC Pride Through the Years issue 1, Batman Scooby-Doo Mysteries issue 9, and Mad Magazine issue 32. So Spirit World I wasn't super hot on last month, but given that I only have 2 other books means I will give issue 2 another try.
Okay. Did you read Waller vs. Wildstorm or?
I don't think I did. I want to say, I don't remember why though. I don't remember why I didn't read it.
I don't know why you didn't read it.
I want to say I just didn't realize it was out the week it was out.
Possible.
It's entirely possible that's why. I also, I'm not that familiar with Wildstorm stuff, so maybe
could be that. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, regardless, that's what's coming. Maybe I'll throw in a couple of random extras if I want to catch up or try something. But I'll definitely do a
Patreon. To more Green Lantern though. I quite enjoyed that first issue.
I did enjoy Green Lantern. Me and Matt were fairly positive on it. We both appreciated it was back to just down to earth and not space hopping for a while.
Yeah, I was a little bit more cautious going in because obviously you two have been really enjoying Adams's Flash stuff, whereas I didn't really enjoy what I read of that early on. I like that more than what I tried from his Flash though, and Domenico's art, right? So that's always great. Yeah,
art was great, and then Johnson's backup was promising enough as well. So yeah, no, I'm looking forward to Green Lantern next week.
Yeah, and I think I definitely enjoyed Spirit World more than you did, by the sounds of it.
Yeah, Spirit World was definitely my least favorite of the of that line. I loved Vigil. I quite liked City Boy. In the Spirit World, I don't hate it, but it's definitely less to my taste just because of what it is.
That's fair.
But yeah, so yeah, quieter week, but we'll both do some Patreon books. I might throw in an extra random book or 2, if I feel like it. We'll see.
What sort of extra random book?
Well, I did review Alien issue 1 a month ago, and I didn't read issue 2 last week, so maybe I'll read issue 2 of that and talk about
Fair enough.
just because I kind of want to. Or maybe I'll read issue 1 of Something Is Killing the Children. Maybe that'll be something nice.
Do that.
People might want to hear my thoughts on. Since it's Tynan, and people who like our show probably like Tynan.
That's one of those books. I did not have the experience of reading that monthly as it came out. I caught up with the first deluxe edition.
Yeah.
So I kind of just read it in one big chunk there, but very good.
Yeah.
And then you've got Department of Truth, which is almost just as good in a very different way.
Yeah. Maybe I'll throw up like a vote on Patreon or something and see if people want to pick like a sort of recent
random issue.
Recent like series that I might read on the show. That's not quite the Patreon because it's not one person picking it, but here's a choice of like 3 or 4 books that I want to read. At
least books you're interested in, so not just read this shit, you bastard.
Yeah, you need to pay a high price for that. I'm not. Yeah. That's not something you just get willy nilly. But yeah, especially for these quieter weeks where there is only maybe 3 or 4 books, it's maybe a good thing to throw in. But that is the show. That is episode 360 of Comics from the Multiverse. If you are a patron and you waited up late for the early version of this, apologies for it being a bit later than normal. Connor had to delay the recording a few hours compared to normal, so it'll just naturally be up later in the night.
But it's here, and I'm here. That's a novelty in itself.
What a comfort! What a comfort that is to them.
The people have missed me. They missed my cynicism. Bring you back down to earth.
I don't know if that's true. I don't know.
No, they'll tell you. They'll tell you how much they miss my cynicism.
I don't know. Anyway, that is the show. As episode 360, we'll be back next week with episode 361. So look forward to that. Let us know what you thought of this week's books in the comments or on Twitter at DC Comics Podcast. Any and all way you want to talk to us is fine. But that is the show, and we'll see you next time. Of course, you can support all the content over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV. $5 and up, you get early access to the show whenever it's ready, sometime late on a Saturday. And as I said, even later than normal this week. But you can look at it this way. It'll be there for when you wake up on the Sunday, as opposed to waiting to the release time.
Isn't that the most important thing?
With everything else. It depends on your time. I feel like if you're in the UK, it's probably always just a wake up on Sunday thing, because it's always after midnight our time by the time I actually get it out.
Yeah, but like Sunday morning, it's just just a casual Sunday afternoon. You can chill in the sun, have a drink, listen to the show. That's the best time for it.
Yeah, aye.
Everyone knows that.
Yes, but yeah.
This is why you should be a patron. You can experience that.
And if you can't support us on Patreon, that's okay. It'll be there for the start of your work week. Just like, comment, and all the other usual things that help out. So that is the show. We'll see you next time. Keep reading DC Comics, and always remember to never get lost in the Speed Force.